Commissioner Christopher McVoy,
Here.
Commissioner Kimberly Stokes,
Here.
Vice Mayor Herman Robinson.
Here. Here.
Okay, I am going to handle the invocation tonight. And how I handle that is to say, dear God, whoever you pray to, whoever you believe in, thank you for the opportunity that we've been given to serve our city. Please guide us in our decisions about how all in favor of the city. Bless our citizens and help those that are in need. It's a rough world out there and everybody needs a little love. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Amen.
And we will have Herman Robinson do the salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Do we have any additions, deletions, or reordering?
I do not, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. All right. We have some presentations. Oh, we have some blue cards. We have the first presentation we have is by Takesha Miles, Supervising Attorney of the Elder Law Project at the Legal Aid Society of Palm Beach County.
Good afternoon, Commission. I'm going to share my screen.
Good evening. Thank you for coming. You are on. You've got 10 minutes. Madam Clerk, are you timing us tonight?
Yes, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
Okay.
Ms. Miles, thank you for coming in and we're looking forward to your presentation.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak to you about our services at Legal Aid Society of Palm Beach County. This is just a brief overview of what we provide at Legal Aid, and I'm here to answer any questions that you may have regarding our services. So I just wanted to give you a snapshot of the problem and why defending evictions is so important for members of your community. Currently, there are 1,092 current cases pending in the 15th Judicial Circuit, which covers all of Palm Beach County. We all know that the CDC moratorium expired July 31st. I know that President Biden has made some discussions about possibly a 60-day ban going into effect for very high concentration counties. So we'll wait to see if that happens. But currently there is no moratorium as of right now today. The moratorium only covered people who were impacted by COVID and were unable to pay their rent. It didn't cover lease expirations or non-renewals or any type of lease violations. It only dealt with non-payment of rent. And as we know, evictions move very quickly when they do move, and they're on summary procedure. So they, once a person gets served with their eviction notice, they have 5 days to respond. If they don't respond in those 5 days, then they may get defaulted by the court, and then the eviction process really moves rapidly and the tenant can be displaced. So what we're trying to do by representing tenants is to ensure that they're not displaced and decrease the risk of homelessness in our community. And the most probably problematic issue with evictions is that that record follows that tenant. It's forever a public record when the eviction is filed. And it also, if there's a judgment entered against that tenant, that could provide future barriers for employment and housing opportunities. So this is just a snapshot of the evictions during the moratorium from March to December of 2020. So with the moratorium in place, there were 3,869 eviction cases filed in Palm Beach County. So you can just imagine what that number would have been if the eviction moratorium was not put in place. So this kind of gives you a current landscape of what's available in Palm Beach County for tenants who are facing eviction or having some sort of issue with their landlord. So I know you've had presentations from the county, but this just kind of gives you a snapshot of what is available. So we have the Emergency Rental Assistance Program, which is the ERA funds, and that provides up to 12 months of rental arrearages paid and 3 months of future rent. Must be a household income of 80% of AMI or lower. And we're prioritizing people who are 50% of AMI. And you have to be a US citizen. There's the Emergency Shelter Grant, which is the ESG program, which also provides up to $10,000 of past due rent and 1 month of future rent. And through the graciousness of a number of local funders here, which are listed here, Community Foundation, United Way, DeLuca Foundation, the Knight Foundation, Quantum Foundation, Children's Services Council, we've raised about $200,000 to help pay the rental assistance for undocumented tenants. So anyone who's living in Palm Beach County who is undocumented will have access to this rental assistance pool of money. And then we also have some municipality funded activities through our CDBG funds, which is our community development block grant through the city of Boynton Beach and the city of Boca Raton. So just a snapshot, I know this is kind of mentioned a couple of weeks ago, but just a snapshot of the clients that we have served at our office during the moratorium period. So I ran a report on our case management system of looking at clients that our office served from January 1st of 2020 through June 30th of 2021. I have a little typo on the date. So for private landlord tenant, just a private landlord and a private tenant in a eviction issue, we served 63 clients. 32 of those clients were from the zip code 33461 and 31 from 33460. And our other category that we track clients of other housing, which could be a mobile home park case or repair case, where maybe a landlord is failing to make repairs. We served 22 additional clients, 10 cases from 33460 and 12 cases from 33461. Now, these numbers do not include any fair housing discrimination cases that we've had in the city of Lake Worth Beach. This only includes our private landlord tenant, repair cases, and mobile home park matters. So what we're proposing to with the city of Lake Worth Beach is to create a program that essentially helps individuals who are facing eviction get in front of it before it gets to the court. So we want to do kind of an upstream program where we are tackling these issues before the court gets involved and giving your tenants in your city access to an attorney or a paralegal to get their questions answered, get direction on what to do. If they get served, then providing representation. So we want to try to make sure we reduce the damage to the tenant's rental history and credit by intervening and open up the dialogue. Unfortunately, this eviction process and how long the moratorium's gone on has really soured the relationships between many of the landlords and tenants in our community. And so by having an advocate there to be able to bridge that communication, we want to get the landlord and tenant talking again and get on a path of whether we can resolve this. And if we can't resolve the matter, helping the tenant get a graceful exit so that they're, it's not the ungodly end and a writ of possession when they have 24 hours to vacate, no place to go. And that's when you have overcrowding, you have the homelessness. So we want to be able to get involved and help the tenant come up with a plan. If staying in the unit is not feasible, then coming up with a plan using our resources and referrals in the community. So essentially what we would provide is a dedicated phone intake extension for residents who have questions regarding landlord-tenant matters and are facing eviction. Tenants will receive advice and counsel, so be able to call up, speak to an attorney, paralegal, get some basic information from them, some demographic information, verify their address to make sure they're residents of Lake Worth Beach, and then be able to answer their questions and give them direction on what to do. The second service that would be offered is that tenants will be able to get pro se assistance, and that means that they are be able to get help preparing their own response. Fortunately, we can't, with 3,000 cases already filed this year in this period. We can't help everybody, but we will help people get direction of getting their answer filed, getting a motion to dismiss filed if there's something to be dismissible, and getting a motion to determine rent filed so that they can try to overcome the barrier of the rent deposit requirements that's in the statute. And what we would be billing the city for are legal representation of tenants who have been served with a summons and complaint. So that means we will be drafting the answer, drafting their motion for them, drafting any pleadings to defend the eviction, and representation at any of the case hearings, case management conferences, and mediations, and taking that person from the beginning of the eviction being served all the way to the end, hopefully with settlement or a dismissal of the case or some sort of judgment where they vacate. And if there are any tenants who need access to rental assistance, getting them referred to the proper rental assistance agency. And finally, working with landlords and tenants to provide education. And so a couple of years ago, we participated in your landlord training program. So we are proposing to resurrect that program and to provide landlords with the tools and resources to be great landlords, to be good landlords that abide by the law, and to train tenants on their rights and responsibilities so they can be good tenants and ensure that the relationship doesn't sour during that process. So our proposed eligibility for this program would be that clients would have to be reside in the city limits for Lake Worth Beach, must have the income that's less than 8% of AMI, provide documentation that they were unemployed because of COVID, had some sort of financial impact because of COVID, their business had to close or was temporarily shut down because of COVID, or they were indirectly impacted by COVID. Maybe they had to, because their children couldn't go to school, they had to not work as much, or they had some sort of other indirect impact that they can show us that made them unable to pay their rent. So with the program, we would provide a monthly report of the unduplicated clients served. And that report would include the name of the client, the address of the property with the PCN number from the property appraiser's office, and a short summary of the legal matter. So if we're helping them with a legal tenant matter, eviction, it's a repair issue that led to the eviction, there would just be a synopsis of what is the services that were being provided and why they needed legal help. And if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, hi, this is Betty Resch, I'm the mayor, and I'm going to start with some questions. And let me just get to my notes. Hi, good evening. My first question was that you mentioned the 5 days. An answer, if someone's served with an eviction, is that after the 3-day notice? They get
Correct.
served, and there's 5 days.
Correct. So the 3-day notice is the start of the landlord tenant process where they've gotten a notice that they owe rent. After that 3-day period runs, after 3 business days, then the landlord can file the eviction case, and then the summons gives them 5 days to respond. And if it's a mobile home park case, they have a 5-day non-payment notice, then they have a 5-day eviction notice from the court.
And you mentioned something about the rent, the relief from having to put the rent, and I just want to say this publicly. I believe that when someone is served with a eviction notice, they, for non-payment of rent, that they actually have to put that rent in the clerk registry to show that they have the ability to pay the rent. Is that my understanding? Is that correct?
So that's what the summons requires. But if there is a dispute as to the amount owed, then they must file a motion to determine rent and ask for the court to make that determination.
Okay. Now, I'm an attorney myself. I do family law. And I'm very impressed when you say how fast the time. I mean, I'm setting hearings in February. I want a hearing on a case. I'm going to February and March of next year. So realistically, I mean, you've only got what, 4 county judges doing this? How fast really is this going to get to a hearing?
Pre-COVID, it took, we would estimate that a eviction case takes about 4 to 6 weeks from start to finish.
Right.
I don't know what the new COVID will be, but that was with in-person hearings and in-person mediation. It takes 4 to 6 weeks from start to finish.
Are mediations still going to be offered the way they are? The volunteer mediators, are they still going to be available to you?
So that is currently one system, but we actually have been piloting a eviction case management conference system with the 15th Judicial Circuit since August. Mm-hmm. And so, for example, this Friday, we will have 30 cases set for 30 cases from all over the county set for case management conference, where our office and attorneys from Florida Rural Legal Services, we will serve as impartial mediators instead of advocates for tenants. And we will try to settle those cases. So in addition to the normal mediation process that would normally go with the court, with the free mediators, our office is also piloting this project with Florida Rural and the 15th Judicial Circuit to do case management conferences where mediation is also offered. So,
and is that after the eviction has been filed, though?
All after the eviction has been filed, correct.
And now this is something that Legal Aid has been, everyone knows Bob Burdish, right? Legal Aid is you've been doing this tenant assistance for a long time. It's not something you're just learning how to do, correct?
Correct.
You've been serving.
Unfortunately, it's just that we've had to grow our program quickly. This used to be that we only had one attorney, and one paralegal for probably, I've been at legal aid since 2006. That's all we've needed. With and then with having a fair housing program, we've had to quickly add staff because of just the volume right now. But we have been doing eviction and housing work for a long time.
A long time, right? Now 80% below the AMI, that's a low figure. Is that set in stone, that 80%? Because if you're making 80% below 80% of the AMI, what if you're like 50% of the, what if you're not that poor, but you still can't hire an attorney? Is that the cutoff for everybody? Is that it?
We can set it however you want. That's just a standard I put in. We can set it at whatever amount. When we had the CARES Act program, the initial rental assistance program that came out from Treasury, that was set at 140%. So a single person could make up to $90,000. So we can set your income eligibility wherever you want it.
Okay. And there'll be a dedicated phone line for Lake Worth Beach residents, a separate phone line for us? That's
correct.
And I very much thank you for having offering that you're going to do a monthly report, because that's one of the things I think it's like, here's this money and where does it go? And I think that's very helpful to us and to the community to have that sort of accountability every month. We very much appreciate that. Any other questions? I see Sarah Malika has a question.
Hello, Ms. Miles. How are you?
I'm good.
Thank you for being here. One of the things I wanted to bring up is this past weekend, I was on WPBR, which is the Haitian radio station, and I was presenting the information that legal aid was going to be accessible. One thing I found on your website is there's no easy language translation to click on for Spanish and Creole. You actually have to get to the application portal to then choose Creole or Spanish. And as you know, we have a very diverse community here in Lake Worth Beach. Is there any way that we could get you guys to make that website more user-friendly for those language differentiations?
I can definitely talk to our IT department. And I know that we have marketing materials that are available and outreach materials that are available in English and Spanish and Creole. But I can talk to our IT department about our website accessibility.
I really appreciate that, at least where they can at least learn how to get to the application process, because I think that's important. Once they get to the application, then you can choose the language. But that was really my only concern on the website, or being able to access the need in our community.
Thank you, Commissioner Robinson.
Thank you, Attorney Miles. Are you going to be around for our discussion of the expenditure under unfinished business?
If you want me to stay around, I can.
Well, otherwise, we have questions that would come up then or now. My questions are under expenditures, not legal questions. So.
I'm happy to stay on.
Just so that if there's any, to clarify anything that might come up. I'd appreciate it. I hate to put you through the meeting, but
I was gonna say, isn't that like
torture?
2 hours from now?
It's yes, Sarah. Hi, Glenn. Hi, our mayor, our lawyer.
One suggestion and one question. You could, if you want, reorder the agenda and take that item now so that Ms. Miles can then be free. I was going to ask her a question in response to your question about the 80% AMI. I think we both, Takesha, speak with others, none of us know for sure what the American Rescue Plan criteria is going to finally be. So we put the 80% in there to be safe, to make sure we get reimbursed. But if that's something that next meeting we need to amend because we have some more guidance from AMR, we could do that. Takesha, do you agree with that, or am I?
Absolutely. That it will all depend on what Treasury regulations require.
And would you be able to, in your monthly report, would you let us know if somebody was in between that 80 and 100% that had to get turned away? Do you report on those kinds of like who's not getting through?
So we wouldn't report on clients we didn't serve. I mean, I can probably keep track just, anecdotally who we turn away, but we wouldn't probably report to you. We don't only report to you who we do serve.
Mhm.
Which leads to the question of an uncooperative landlord. Were we going to get any information on how you're proceeding if the landlord's not cooperating?
So
And would that be public record? Are evictions public record? Okay.
So evictions are public record, and so you'll have the name of the client, our client, who's the tenant, which you can look up in the court docket. And you also have the address of the property in our report, where you'll be able to find the owner of the property, and they would be the plaintiff in any eviction case. And the clerk system is very user-friendly to be able to follow along
But
in
that
any of the
won't-
cases.
but that won't answer whether they're cooperative or not.
Yeah, I wouldn't put in a public record whether they're cooperative or not in that way. I can tell you how the case resolved. We could, give you some idea what the resolution is, but it could be either side that, caused a poor resolution.
Thank you.
Well, do you have any other questions or just?
Well, I was just going to ask about the expenditure of our $50,000 into it.
Okay, we have voted not to reorder, but we could perhaps change that vote and reorder it. We could do that.
You can always make a motion.
I think the reordering makes sense while she's here.
We're working on it.
I respect your time.
So who would like to move?
Make a motion to address item unfinished business B
B,
now.
and who would second that?
Second.
By Maliga. Okay, all in favor?
I,
Madam Clerk, we've moved the agenda. So now,
And my question on the expenditures is, do we want to put limits on her budget? And I'm interested in what happens to the property if they get evicted. It goes on the street. That's a loss of property for the tenant. Is there any part of our budget that we could provide at least a bulk pickup in a gentle way to move it into storage or
just
saying, otherwise it's going on the street and there it is.
Well, no,
They've lost their entire.
and don't they have 30 days or something to move?
No, not at all.
no, it's
If I
quick.
can, if I can just respond to that. Once the tenant gets served with their possession, they have 24 hours to vacate. The sheriff's officer will come back out after the 24 hours to make sure that the tenant has left the property. And at that point, if the tenant is still on the property, they are removed from the property. And then the landlord has the ability to remove all the items inside the unit to the property line. So that's how you'll see it at the curb. And the landlord's under, unfortunately, no obligation under those circumstances to keep, maintain, secure those items.
But at this point, the person who's going through the process has already had a 3-day and then a 5-day, and then, so they kind of already know that
It's
they
no
might
surprise.
lose.
Oh, yeah.
It's not,
surprise.
there's no surprise element.
Right.
Not at that stage, no.
Okay, thank you.
It's harsh.
It's horrible.
Of course, it's harsh, and we hope that it doesn't happen and that
And
you're able to prevent it. Chris?
3 to 5 days is very little notice if you're trying to deal with the legal, and now you got to find a place to store your stuff. You got to find who your
Chris, it's
friends
not
are going to
three-
be.
no, Chris, it's not 3 to 5 days. You get a 3-day notice. If you don't pay or get out by 3 days, then you get served an eviction. You've got 5 days to answer it. And then the court process takes a little while. And what Ms. Miles is saying, it's taking, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, 4 to 6 weeks to get
4 to
that.
6 weeks is what we tell clients.
So you've got at least a month to know what's going on. So it's not like you wake up in 3 days, you're out on the street.
Right.
I mean, I've seen it happen and it's a very harsh result, but the landlords, let's not forget that landlords have to pay mortgages.
I was gonna ask, well, what if the landlord doesn't want the money and they just want the person out? Is there a way that then the money that would have been used as the rental assistance could be given towards first and last to get them into a new home?
Well, let me clarify what I understand the proposal that we're doing is just to provide the legal work that you all were not providing rental assistance. Is that
Yeah,
my
that's
misunderstanding
correct.
that?
Right, but the county has rental assistance.
Correct, but if so, the person is eligible for the county's risk rental assistance, then we would try to get the client eligible, but the landlord has to agree to participate, and that's the other part of this.
But if that landlord doesn't participate and they need to move, does that rental assistance program allow them to get money for first and last and security if they need to move?
So the county does have a separate program of relocation assistance, and they'll help
Okay.
pay for last and security.
Okay, thank you.
That's the hardest thing, really, moving to an apartment. I mean, the rent might be affordable, but let's say it's $1,500, you've got at least $4,500 to get in.
Plus moving expenses.
And if you have an eviction on your record, that now with so many, I'm a mom and pop landlord, but there's a lot of corporate landlords out there, and they don't want to hear it if you've got an eviction. I would consider somebody that had an eviction because life happens, but the corporations are not going to do that. You're out then at that point. So avoiding it, thank you very much, is about the most important thing here. So we are now looking at unfinished business B. And I believe that it takes a motion. So, and what we're considering, Ms. Miles, is a $50,000 allocation for you for this program, for legal aid to do this.
Okay.
Okay, and so do anybody have any other questions? Herman, you're pensive.
Well, I really, the consequences of evictions are, many. And one of them is the effect on city property when you have bulk pickup.
Well, the landlord has the landlord does have the responsibility. We all, as landlords and property owners, have the responsibility not to put bulk stuff out when it's not the day. So
Can we
I'm
add
just
that
saying
to
a
our
portion-
meeting on 2 weeks from now? Because this right now, this is
it's
just
not
about
what
this.
exactly.
But I agree that that's an issue but Ms. Miles
That's
has
how
no
we're here
control over
for.
that.
I do have a
So if we
question
could
on
add that to our agenda from 2 weeks from now to discuss how we can,
Distribute the 50,000.
No,
no, this is just for the.
this is for
legal aid.
them to do the legal work. That's all.
And I'm saying, let's give them 40 and hold back 10 to talk about other options in terms of advertising.
This is less than 0.5% of our ARPA money. I don't know
Right.
why we would need to hold back if we want to put
Yeah.
in 10 more, let's put in 10 more in another discussion.
But that would be, right, another discussion. Commissioner Maliga.
My question is, reading the executive brief, I don't know if I'm missing it. Didn't we say we wanted to allocate $500 per case?
That's how I think the legal aid is charging us $500 a case, Ms. Miles. That's the legal
That's
aid.
correct.
Not in here, that's why I
I'm
was
not
asking.
sure if your backup includes the sub-grant agreement.
Doesn't.
Okay. If you want, we could put this on the next agenda as consent, because there is a sub-grant agreement that I thought was going to.
I thought it was in here, yeah.
I thought it was made in here, but it
I
does
don't have it.
specify up to $50,000 and $500 for each unit of unduplicated eviction representation for our eligible laborers.
Under new business B,
Unfinished.
unfinished business B, I mean?
Mhm.
Yeah, no.
It is a sub-grant agreement,
Yes, thank you.
section
Yeah.
2 compensation.
I did not, I don't have it in my backup, but okay.
If you can,
It's in there, the backup, and it's there.
Well, okay,
Well, I have paper backup and it's not in
right,
there.
right.
You don't have it either?
I have paper backup.
Yeah, I have paper and it's on in
So,
ours.
okay, Glenn, your suggestion is if we get consensus tonight to approve this, we could vote to approve it actually, and then you could just, really, we could vote to, are you in
Yeah.
favor?
No,
of
I'm good, yeah.
you could vote to approve the agreement. I
Yeah.
have to have you do it if you don't have it in your backup. But
No, as long as you're answering the question and I get it later, that's fine.
Yeah.
okay, your motion could be to approve the sub-grant agreement with legal aid for up to $50,000.
In $500 increments, correct?
$500 increments is set forth in here.
That's the
Would you
motion.
like to make that motion?
Yes, what he just said.
Did you just make that motion?
Yes, I did.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Oh, wait,
I,
Wait, what, wait? Kim?
What?
Wait,
I believe there was public comment on this.
Yes, I have several public comments, Madam Mayor.
you.
I'm sorry.
No, I'm glad you
I mean,
did
for
that.
us, yeah.
I'm glad you, that's right, they were, okay. So Madam Clerk, can we have the public comments? Thank you, I appreciate that.
I was like, wait, what did I do wrong?
Yes, let me reset my timer for 2 minutes.
I get so excited.
I know.
Okay, so the first public comment is from Nick Palyugi, who wrote, "I would like to express my support for using the ARPA money to prevent evictions in Lake Worth. If you have read any major news outlet this month, you would know that we are about to experience a wave of evictions due to the expiration of the eviction moratorium. Here are some of the headlines. U.S. states brace for an avalanche of evictions as federal moratorium ends. From The Guardian. The coming eviction crisis will hit Black communities the hardest. Brookings Institute. Eviction bans end will mean major crisis. Orlando Sentinel. Florida has dispersed 2% of rent aid as eviction moratorium ending. From Tampa Bay Times. The current city commission will be presiding over this crisis at the local level. So I hope you're doing everything you can to prevent the resulting impacts to the city an eviction wave will cause. Homelessness, mental health, increased crime, increased domestic abuse, kids falling behind in school, etc. The fact that the city is only willing to spend 0.30% of the ARPA money on this seems like it is not being taken seriously enough. For now, I hope that the commission can at least vote yes to approve this small amount of ARPA money to provide legal assistance for Lake Worth renters while looking to other cities that are taking a proactive approach to deal with what's coming. The next comment is from Sienna Myers, 429 North D Street, who wrote, "I am very concerned about the wave of evictions that is about to force many families out of their homes across the US and here in Lake Worth. With the end of the eviction moratorium, we need to spend the ARPA money on the residents who need it most. I fully support Lake Worth using ARPA money to prevent evictions in our city." The last comment is from Noam Brown, who wrote, "I would like to express my support for using ARPA money to prevent evictions in Lake Worth. With the eviction moratorium ending this weekend and the fact that the average amount of rent owed by those renters who are behind on rent in Palm Beach County is well over $4,000. We as a city need to recognize the impact this will have on many of our residents and the urgent need to act. ARPA money is being made available to municipalities in an attempt to mitigate the many harmful effects of the COVID crisis. There have been many impacts on our neighbors and community members through this past year and a half. While we are being allocated the sum of ARPA money, it is our responsibility to ensure that we are assisting those who are the most financially vulnerable and doing what we can to prevent further crises. Excuse me, spending just 1/3% on legal assistance for renters facing eviction is a start, but quite honestly is not nearly enough. I encourage the commission and the residents of the city as a whole, and when I say residents of the city as a whole, I don't mean just the neighborhood associations, to continue to discuss this and give it more thought and consideration as to how to utilize this money for what it was not only truly intended for, but also to promote a healthy and vibrant city by meeting the needs of our most vulnerable neighbors. Thank you.
That's it.
That is it.
Thank you. One question I do have, Mr. Attorney, is I would like to look at the 80%, if we can look at that, whether that's mandatory or whether we can play with that a little
I need a
bit.
what?
Blue card in the back.
Were any of these about this item or no? Okay, cool.
Yeah, I actually anticipate that there's a pretty good chance that we'll be bringing back an amendment to this agreement.
Right.
Once there's some more clarifying regulations from Treasury, as Keisha said, because we're all shooting in the dark now. The
Bring it up.
contract talks about complying with American Rescue Plan, and both of us are advising our clients to sign that and agreeing to it, even though neither one of us knows exactly what that's going to say. So
And we can listen, if this goes, we can always come back and do more. I mean, we just, this is really just to open the door and get things started so that we can help folks. Okay, we're gonna tap dance for a minute while this lady fills out
This
her
is what
card.
I came to. So.
Well, go ahead, just quickly, go ahead and do it.
I'm
Just fill out the card and then come up, give me the card, and then you can speak. It's a little protocol we have adopted here.
I'll let you know too, that I had a meeting with the county today, and I think the number was $45 million that they still have
Here, I'll take it.
in a couple of different
Thank you.
buckets to spend, and they are trying to push money out in both rental assistance and eviction prevention. So there's a lot. We're not the only ones doing this. The
Exactly.
County is the big player.
They got a lot of money.
And they are very on top of this right now.
Okay, thank you. And I'm doing my best. Tippy Breakwell?
Tippy Breakwell.
I did pretty well. Come up to the podium. You've got 2 minutes. I try my best.
2 minutes, okay.
And you're in support of what we're doing, so isn't that beautiful?
I am not.
You're not.
I'm not in support of
This
this.
is support for eviction.
I am a Realtor and a property owner in this town.
Okay,
For 20 years, I have sold, managed, and this year I'm building a house in this town in Maple Groves. I want to bring 21st century housing to this town. It's not inside of Parrot Cove and not inside of College Park. Anyway, I'm
You got 2
furious.
minutes.
I'm furious. I cannot believe that my government and my town has proposed and will likely approve the use of COVID funds to partner with attorneys to help support residents to default and avoid evictions. Residential income is essential to those who invest. And we are seeking investment in this town, are we not? We are desperate as a redeveloping town for investors, are we not? You are voting to use the dollars against the property owners of this town that voted you into office. You are proposing to use government monies to fight them, to allow the residents to fight against the residents. My father is a resident at Abbey Del Rey. His property in Jamestown, Rhode Island, directly pays his tab at Abbey Del Rey. Residential income is not, why is the burden on the homeowner? Why is the burden on the investor? This is whacked. And this will come down on you because I won't shut up. This is what I do and I'm looking to make our town better. Not make it, I don't know what, I don't even want to go there. But we are seeking to improve this town, not to give it away. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. We have a,
I'm sorry, who made the second, Madam Mayor?
who made the second?
We tried.
I did, but I think Commissioner Malega did too.
Okay,
I have her as making the motion.
motion. So we'll have Commissioner.
I get
Stokes.
seconded it.
Okay, then we have a fight over who seconded it, and it would be, I think Mr. McVoy won
Unanimous.
out of sympathy for his illness. So all in favor?
I get the sympathy second.
You do, you do.
Aye.
And ma'am, I would just make a comment that you may misunderstand what a lot of this is about. We can't get a discussion, but I would like to, me too. I'm a landlord myself. Thank you. Okay, next on the
Did we
agenda.
vote? I know I heard
A
about.
vote,
the
a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye,
Thank you.
again.
Next on the agenda. No, you did not fill out a card, ma'am. You've been here since the beginning. Wait, where, what? About,
We're only on presentations though.
yeah.
We don't have public comment.
Item up.
Okay.
You moved.
Yes, but I understand that, but we're just, right, we did that. Now we're gonna start the next item on the agenda. And I have to find out what this lady wrote her card about. Which item did you write about?
Unfinished business, part B, the legal aid. So I put 2 cards, one for public comment and one for the.
What's your name, ma'am?
Dana, DANNA.
Okay, you have unfinished business B.
Yes.
Okay,
This one.
sure, come on up. Is that this?
Yes.
Okay. Multiple, I'm easy to confuse tonight.
We moved things around.
We do,
Yeah.
just an old lady confused.
Okay.
Good evening.
Hi, my name's Dana, and I want to thank the government, the commissioners, and the mayor for supporting people that are in need right now that are suffering from a crisis.
All I need.
I do have a few questions about the program as far as like, what does the outreach program look like? Because I'm thinking more about the migrant families in our community. A lot of them are afraid. A lot of them don't know how to approach the situation. So are there any efforts that are focused on them and ensuring that they feel safe to come in and get the resources and the help that they need? And if I understood correctly, you do not need to be documented in order to receive the legal aid. So is there a possibility to emphasize that point so that way they know that they can receive aid? And then to echo some of the comments that were left, how is this part of a more comprehensive plan to tackle the housing crisis? I'm very concerned for my neighbors. I'm very concerned for my community. And I want to try to figure out a way to support them, to support you, to ensure that we are getting the resources to them. So if I, myself and the community has a better understanding of what is accessible to us, I'm happy to support, I'm happy to get out, I'm happy to do whatever needs to be done, but I just want to see a larger conversation happening because there's so much more than just preventing evictions. There's also unhoused people that need
Okay,
support.
and absolutely, tonight it's really, this item is limited just to that. So we're gonna ask, figure that you're welcome to email any of us with those questions
Mhm.
and make it the bigger picture, but really this vote is just limited to this.
Okay, so
issue.
in regards to this vote, what are the outreach programs to?
No, we don't,
I mean,
we don't really answer questions here. It's really just public comment.
correct.
Yeah,
So I'm not expecting an answer right
Okay,
now.
thank
It's
you.
something for you to think about and approve. Thank you.
trust us, we are all very aware of the problem, and
Thank
there
you.
you go, right there.
So yeah, so just kind of bringing that conversation to play.
Yep.
Because that's what we need
We're-
to hear
we're-
more of.
We're working on it. We are very well aware of this crisis in
Thank
our
you.
city.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay,
Back to presentations.
let's see if I can't mess this up. Okay. So now we are on presentation. Second one. Ms. Oliva, quarterly presentation by the CRA. Something that Vice Mayor Robinson asked for, we support,
Yeah.
and looking forward to it. I believe this is the first of the quarterly presentations.
November.
Take a deep breath.
These are hot.
Right?
Good evening. My name is Jonah Oliva. I'm the Executive Director of the Lake Worth CRA and here to give you probably what we did. This is at least an annual presentation to you to get you up to speed on what we've been doing. We're going to start out with just where we are today. Our taxable values in 2021 went up 8.6%. And that equals a 12.4 increase in our revenues, which equals approximately another $470,000 for us to put into the city this year. We're not going to go into the property tax breakdown, just a little bit about the tax exempt value. That continues to rise. We're close to $100 million in tax exempt value. So, you know, just something to be aware of when we're doing things that, you know, take things off of the tax rolls. Oh, you really can't read that.
Thank you. That's clear.
Yeah, okay. There's a definition on the lower left side that explains,
We're getting some technical help here.
that's good, because
We can use it.
I mean, they can see that.
That's better. It's very Palm Beach colors. Very Lily Pulitzer.
It is very Lily Pulitzer.
Very Lily. It's a
It
fashionable
wasn't
CRA.
intentional.
We're not paying her any royalties, are we?
Okay, we give up. This slide includes, just for people who are watching online or they would like to see this, it includes a definition of exactly where we get our money from, which is the values above the base value, the increment that is charged against that. And so this chart shows you from 2012 to 2021, a really steady progression, which is something that we really look for. Before this, there was a lot of ups and downs with the recession, and then NSP came in, and the neighborhood stabilization program. And we had a lot of foreclosures, and hopefully we won't be back to that again. But so you can just see that there's a steady increase over all these years. And to also just let you know that our taxes they're only the increment from the city and the county. They do not include fire rescue, school board, South Florida Water Management District, and those others that are listed. And that's just to let you know that they still get their full taxes. We don't pull anything from that.
I hope that's a before picture.
Definitely a before picture. These are some of the before pictures from NSP. And these are probably some of the worst. And looking at, properties around Lake Worth, a lot of times they look really well from the outside, but it's the inside that really needs a lot of help. And, we had a really great successful program with NSP, and I wish we had more money to continue it. Since program inception, we've built 217 new renovated houses that include rentals, they include homeownership, they include live work blocks, and they also included the creation of at least 100 jobs. Right now, we are probably towards the end of NSP. Any money that we have now has been program income. And we have maybe a few $100,000 left, but with that, we're planning on doing another 57 residential units. That will include a mix of single family. We're working closely with the Community Land Trust, and that's their rendering there on the bottom right towards the middle. Live work along Lake and Lucerne, and we're proposing or estimating approximately 20 jobs to be created. And I hear a lot of, we have enough affordable housing. And it's not great for the economy, and it's exactly the opposite of that. We have a lot of housing that is affordable. We don't have a lot of safe, clean places that people can live here that are really within the means of people who work in this area. So this is just a snapshot that shows you, this is 30 properties that we just picked out from the NSP property. The $522,000 was spent to buy those properties. Today, they're worth $5.2 million. So they're definitely bringing in taxes, they're definitely bringing in value, and they're definitely meeting the needs of the community for as much as we can at this point.
What's the?
We are
the
keep
last
going
two?
with the graph. What's the
Yeah,
last two columns?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Shows you the taxes when we first bought them and what the taxes are today.
And that's taxes that go to the city. You don't get that, do you?
Oh, yes.
Yes, we do.
Oh, yes, you do. Oh, yes, you do.
What years is based off of though?
Which
The
one?
taxes for, is that,
2021?
well, my house is listed, I'm not gonna tell you which one, the numbers,
no, don't do
yeah, don't, the numbers not exactly accurate, so.
Okay.
Would you consider these affordable houses with that kind of jump in value?
Well, that's kind of the problem, right? They are affordable in that there's a deed restriction on them.
Okay.
When people purchase these properties, they were affordable, but once the restriction goes off, either in 15, 20, or 30 years, then they don't have to be affordable anymore. And that's one of the things I think we really learned about NSP is that we started out with like a 15 and 30 kind of going back and forth between, should we give this amount of time for it to be restricted versus this amount of time. And looking back, I can tell you, I wish we had done the maximum
Longer.
of 30 years.
Yeah. Yeah. You did 15, after 15 years, it can be sold at a profit.
Correct.
Scary thing is, if you sell it though, like how do you go out and buy something that's affordable like you have now? You can't.
You can't.
So,
You can't,
you
So
know,
who actually still owns those properties? Does the CRA own them or do the people
Oh,
own them?
no, people own them.
Okay.
Yeah, they're all sold fee simple.
Okay.
This is just an example of one of our projects that obviously we've been working on probably the last 5 years. It's all nice and built. The CRA investment in that was $1.5 million through a development grant and some NSP program income that we spent to demo what little was there before. Affiliated development costs were over $47 million. And that's a market value increase from 3.2 to 18 million, which is substantial. And out of that, 718 was paid to the city as far as fees. So these projects, not that everybody likes larger projects like that, but larger projects or a number of small projects definitely also bring value to the city. There's just another example of the downtown shops. This particular development, we got a parcel from a bank for free, and we turned it over to this particular developer, who then put in another $9 million to build the downtown shops, which is there today. And I believe there's probably at least 30 new jobs created because of that. The Bohemian, you're all used to it by now, was seeing the cranes up in the air. The CRA investment for that was $1.8 million. We also used some NSP program money for the demolition there. An affiliated development cost is at least $49 million.
When you said, is that how much they're going to spend to build it?
Correct.
Okay.
And then again, with that project, $555,000 paid to the city for development and utility fees. And of those 200 units, 55 would be workforce, and we're going to be working with affiliated developers with the transfer of the money from GL Homes to affiliated, and making sure that we monitor those particular properties to make sure that they continue to meet affordability requirements. This is kind of a little bit of the opposite on the other end of the city. This is Alora. This particular project received a $100,000 infrastructure grant, and its predecessor, the one, also received a $100,000 infrastructure grant. But you can see that there's millions of dollars obviously going into the production of that. This is their, hard to see, and I apologize, but there's some before and after pictures of 1000 Lake. And I would invite you, maybe not right now with COVID, but hopefully when things return to somewhat normal, to go in and take a look at the insides. It's really a phenomenal renovation project. We bought this particular building for $850,000. We sold it for $350,000, but Oak Lane Investment is putting in over $2.4 million into this particular project, and it's taken a considerable amount of years and time due to COVID, but the developer's been really great and has continued to put time and effort into this, and it's something that he loves, so we were very lucky to have him.
And that building has sat there empty for so many years. It's really good to see work going on in it.
Absolutely. The Gulfstream, the CRA investment in this particular project that will come before you hopefully relatively soon is $1.8 million. The development costs are estimated to be upwards of $81 million. And this is an old rendering, I know, but it gives you an idea of what the potential could be there. It's a couple different projects here. What we're working on now, 1213 Lake Avenue, that's an abandoned building that has been on Lake Avenue for at least 15 years. It was looking exactly like that when I got here 14 years ago. Here is a rendering of close to what it would look like. We've had to go back 3 times to do cost estimates because construction is just completely crazy right now as far as costs, but our hopes is to get the building renovated, the ground floor to be home to the Inner City Innovators, which is a nonprofit group we're working with that will provide mentoring for local youth, girls and boys, and people of all colors. And then we would like to use the second floor to provide artist space that we would rent out for an affordable price for local.
That's 10 minutes. I don't know if you want to allow some extra time.
Do we want to vote to allow some extra time?
I would like to.
I would like to.
I would like to.
Kim, would you like to?
That's fine. Yeah, I'm afraid we're probably not gonna have any time for questions or anything like that, but
I'll try to go faster. These are some 2 properties, actually more than 2 properties, 2 projects, I should say, on Lucerne, the Sky Garden and the Standard. The Sky Garden is an NSP property, and One Continent is developing that into 4 residential units. Then we have the Standard next door, which is a private development that's going to be some residential units plus some ground floor retail. These are, of course, along Lake and Lucerne Avenue. There was a time, and there is an approved plan to build 42 multifamily residential units along Lake and Lucerne. In light of COVID and changes in the commission, the developer was nice enough to go back and reconsider. And the rendering on your lower right side, it's not done yet, but we're working on changing the project from 41 rental units to 17 live work units, and having at least some of them be for sale. So we're kind of continuing the artist live work in that particular area and not trying to bring as many people as we at first like to, but I think that the neighborhood will probably be better served with a little bit smaller of a project. Deco Green, this one was just approved by you a few weeks ago. The purchase price was $2.4 million. That's how much the CRA bought the land for, and we sold it for $2.49 to the Office America Group. And as you know, they're going to be doing 127 residential units, some retail, office space, and their value moving forward going into the project is at least $32 million. We have 6th and Dixie. This is actually a private developer who has bought a number of properties in that particular area. He has moved forward with the Dunkin' Donuts. He wants to move forward with an apartment building close to 6th and Dixie. You'll be probably getting some information about that within the coming weeks. This is just a quick slide to go over some of what we give to developers or to property owners. We have a facade grant, we have a tenant improvement grant, we also have a public infrastructure grant. And we figured out with the amount awarded that there's a 24-to-1 public-private ratio of money going in. These are some other things that we've worked on, the mid 1000 Lake Avenue, as I showed you before, 1013. These are another 21 grants that we awarded. These are 12-to-1 ratio of improvements. Most of these have taken place either in the downtown or on Dixie Highway. We've also done emergency COVID grants. We do have money budgeted next year, just in case we're in the same situation we were last year. We granted over 16 awards to local businesses who needed help, as well as giving money and doing both food drives and Thanksgiving dinner.
Okay, are we almost close to the end? Is this PowerPoint can be available on?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm gonna go right to the end.
Okay.
And that is to tell you that this is what we're working on for next year. So I think this is kind of like the crux of everything. So we're putting a couple $100,000, more than a couple $100,000 into neighborhood programs, and we're going to focus on working with the city to do weatherization grants, especially for the historic district. We're also working on a home security program that would help people with things such as Ring doorbells, smoke detectors, and outside lighting, and then also bringing back our housing rehab program, which we haven't had for a number of years. We're also working closely with the city on foreclosures to turn the ones that are in the neighborhoods that are in the CRA into affordable housing, working with our nonprofit developers that we worked with NSP. I mentioned the other, we all know about downtown L&M. We are still working on a scope for future charrette that we will do so we can get as much public input as possible before we move forward with anything with that. And then just some other infrastructure projects we're working on. We're working on the FDOT circle improvements up at Lake Worth Road, and we're also a partner with the city on the US 1 corridor improvements.
Thank you. It's a lot of information. I'm sure there's a lot of questions. I don't know how much time we have for questions. I have been asked by some folks about the condition of the properties in the L&M, what we call the L&M project, and I want them to know that we are in fact inspecting them and getting a look at them and just see what's going on with them, with an eye of what's next.
Yeah, what are the cost estimates and which I think we need to know before we move forward with
Exactly.
any decision.
Yep. So that's still an open book for those that are concerned, and everyone knows how concerned I have been about that project. So thank you. Commissioner Stokes.
I just have a quick comment about the development that's going on around here on the west side with Lake and Lucerne. And I know you've mentioned before, wanting to make sure that we're like taking in consideration the diversity and the immigrants that live there and incorporating them in there. Because right now it seems like the major focus is on with the live workspaces being for artists, and which we like. We love artists and we want to celebrate and continue to bring artists to our town. But as we're looking at that area, how can we design places that are going to celebrate the cultural richness that's already here? And so I didn't see that on the roadmap for the future year, but we do need to have like a good conversation.
And I can assure you that Joan and I have been talking, I sort of annoy her a lot about that issue. And I have some things that I'm working with her about different ideas about it's really close to all of us. And so that we are absolutely working actively on getting that together.
Right. So
I'm
like
meeting with
something with
the-
the whole commission, like publicly, where we can all kind of workshop or get on the
Right.
same page.
Yeah, we're getting close to that. We've got to just check out a few things. I'm meeting with the Guatemalan ambassador next week, I think. I met today, and Sarah also met with him. A young man that's going to give a presentation he's trying to get an affordable housing program going. I think we have made it very clear to the CRA that, what's going on is great. We need the modern apartments, but we now need to look west and get more, pay more attention to the west side. And we,
Hallelujah.
yeah, you think?
Yeah,
And
Well, our
we've-
money, we budgeted money specifically for that and are working with Juan and his staff to try
Right.
to look at foreclosures, especially in Royal Point, Sienna, Tropical Ridge area.
Yeah, and I
Specifically for affordable housing.
yeah, and I have to tell you how, as I bring these sort of new ideas that, we all bring to the staff, the staff has been really receptive and malleable, and I'm working with Joan has been a surprisingly good experience.
Why surprisingly good?
We started out, I said, we had a lot to go over and we did it, and grown-ups, it's a good working partnership, and I really appreciate that. And Juan is one of the staff as well. It's good to see. Commissioner Robinson?
I will second that adulations of what CRA does. But I'm hoping that your comment about annual report is going to not stand to a
Quarterly.
Quarterly report.
Quarterly.
The sheriff reports quarterly. You are as impactful to the community as that. And I think a quarterly report, when it's like this,
No,
I
what I'm
look
saying
forward
is this
to-
one is an annual because I had to bring you all up to speed,
Right.
but for moving
Yeah.
forward, we can do quarterly.
Yeah, I think that's helpful.
Thank you. We need to be working to make parking, transportation, mobility. And my question is, did you negotiate with any participation in addressing mobility with the developments in the larger developments in the last 2 years?
No, I have not.
And
They're all on bus routes.
I'm sorry?
They're all pretty, the ones on Dixie and they're all on bus routes. And I think the Bohemian is,
To downtown. What I'm interested in is the getting people downtown from the 100 plus units.
yeah, but there's buses. If you get the book on the buses, it's really, I was at the jail the other day and they have a book of like the bus routes. And there's really quite a bit of, I was working there. I was not there for anything.
Might want
For
to
reasons.
disclose that.
Visiting clients. And I'm really impressed with, you don't think about the bus if you don't take the bus, but so, Dixie Highway, the bus goes, you can take the bus from the beach all the way out to Wellington. And I think the Bohemian, one of the attractions of the Bohemian is that we anticipate that that's going to have a transportation hub, the tri-rail stop there.
Well, we're,
Okay, not Tri-Rail, but the
Bright line,
Express.
Bright line.
and specifically this,
I'm sorry?
Not Brightline, but whatever the
Right.
projected, for
Right.
the eastern,
Some sort of train will stop there.
that's it's not a done deal, but it's certainly the hope, and
Right.
we're all in favor of it.
Right.
But I
Your
think what
point-
Commissioner,
Wait.
Sorry.
Yes, Commissioner, do you have something else to add?
I think what Commissioner Robinson, if I understood correctly from his previous comments, what he's referring to is more something smaller scale than the Palm Tran, but that would connect some of these new developments. We've brought in a bunch, two near 10th Avenue,
Yeah.
the Mid, Deco, to circulate through some of those, maybe in parallel, maybe in the same route, I don't know, but bringing people relatively easily and quickly to the downtown. And I think that is not a crazy idea. And I would echo his suggestion that maybe as the CRA works with developments, that it's a little out of their normal scope. They build buildings, they don't do transportation, but as part of an overall mobility approach, it's worth asking about it.
Sure, thank you.
I do have an unrelated comment to the transportation, if I
Okay, yeah,
a quick one, and that is, I think we like to see the focus picking up to west of Dixie toward the circle. However, something that's concerned me for a long time, I'd like to request to Joan that we do some sort of it doesn't have to be very extensive, but or super detailed, but some sort of economic assessment of the multiple small, mostly Latin, some Haitian businesses in that area, and I would include it to Dixie as well, because I'm concerned that it would be relatively easy as we build more buildings along there for rents, commercial rents, to just keep going up to the point where those kind of businesses are all forced out. And I'd like to have some numbers, some data on how much economic impact those businesses have, because I suspect it's much bigger than what we estimate, and that it's worth trying to find some way to make sure that we don't economically force them out.
thank you. Well said. I think, I don't know how they could, right now the staff is a little stretched about getting an economic, what they actually contribute, but I think that's a point well taken. Okay.
It could perhaps be a master's project from FAU or
Well,
something.
let's
There are
get those
ways to do it.
I had a couple,
One more thing, Commissioner Maliga?
Apparently, Mr. Robinson.
Okay,
I wasn't finished.
yeah, go ahead.
Because I consider the CRA most important in the city. I think that somehow either we or they require public meetings when projects come to the community. I don't know who's going to do that, but we suggest, but required is a different word. I want to thank you for the Zoom meeting on the retail, the affordable housing at the casino, and the 19th is Joe Minicozy is and all the other people that you brought for education purposes. I want to thank you very much. The sustainability part of this mobility topic is the mobility and transportation and parking to downtown is not even in the topic of dog parks and murals. And I just cannot understand why, if we're talking sustainability, why we haven't considered something better than to the community than dog parks and murals.
I actually do agree with you, and I think as we move forward, especially with affordable housing, when developers come in, they're gonna be asking for certain things. Obviously, they're gonna ask for density bonuses, but they'll also probably ask for reductions in parking so they can use more of the space for actual units. And as that comes about, and then we also have the Dixie Highway narrowing potentially.
Diets are good.
When we kind of plug all of those things in, we do need to look at, the future of transportation and how we get people around the city, not just in it.
And I'm sorry that we missed, a half a dozen opportunities.
Well, that's why we changed the sustainability.
And I look forward to November with all your other new projects coming forward. Thank you very much.
November. Quarterly. Commissioner Maliga.
Hi. So we all know that I'm a big fan of the CRA because that's how I ended up coming to this great city. First as a business owner and then as a resident. So I'm in favor of the CRA staying. My bigger fear, because we all see what they do, is that people don't realize the dollar amount of investment that is put into the city because we have a CRA. My bigger concern, and this is more for the people who are listening in the body, is to think about the potentially the CRA could sunset in 10 years.
Yes.
What is our financial plan in 10 years if we allow that? I want us to really think hard about doing a findings and necessity study and redistricting the CRA out of the downtown where they've done an amazing job and opening up to the South region where we need development on Federal, on Dixie, in Osborne, in Whispering Palms, and really think hard about that because it takes 2 or 3 years to get it done and approved. I don't want the CRA to sunset in 10 years.
Mhm.
And I'll scream that from the top of the mountain, because the CRA brings good investment, good business owners and good residents into the city. And we don't have a backup plan if we lose them. So just keep that in mind. That's all.
And certainly we don't want to be the CRA.
No, we
No,
don't.
No,
No, I didn't sign up for that.
Not that bad, guys.
Really.
You're doing a fine job though with your staff. You and Chris and Emily do an amazing job.
And, you know, I was happy when I was city attorney years ago to be able to change the CRA base rate, base year.
Thank you for that.
Because the year that we actually started the CRA was kind of a high year and we weren't getting much money for the CRA. So I worked with the commission up here in the county and we were able to change.
Great, so you can help navigate the next round.
Absolutely. I'm there with you. All right. Thank you very much. Were there any public comments? No, there's no public comments on these. All right. I'm just trying to be careful. Okay, next we have a presentation by the Library Advisory Board. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
Sam, will you unmute yourself? Thank you.
See you in November,
See you before then.
November. What's his name?
if not before.
Is Sam frozen? Because it doesn't
I
look
am
like.
not
he's moving.
frozen. I was
Oh.
waiting for a cue from Melissa, but she has muted herself. Good
No,
evening, Commissioners, Madam Mayor. I am Sam Goodstein, speaking for the Library Advisory Board. I come tonight to give you a report on our last meeting, our first meeting since COVID, and a general report on the library. Out of the last meeting, we had a few specific recommendations. The first one was to restore the funding of the staffing and materials budget to the 2019 levels. That would allow the library to have 4 full-time and 2 part-time members. Right now it has 4 full-time staffing, and the materials budget is at 40,000 and it was at 50,000. The second recommendation that came out was one of changing the hours to include Saturday, and that is actually in the works with success. And after Labor Day, we will be Tuesday to Saturday, 11:30 to 5:30. The third thing that came out of that meeting was a recommendation to see if we could accept the Friends of the Library sitting as the Library Advisory Board. That recommendation is irrelevant because the Friends, as a 501c3, cannot sit as anything that's politically appointed, which, although I like to avoid it, I am in fact a political appointee. Now, we think of the library as an institution in Lake Worth, which has a lot of good connotations. It's always been there, it's going to be there, but it also has a little whiff of staleness. And as most of you know, having visited the library lately, there's nothing stale about it. We have had a lot of changes, started beginning with when you walk in the door, you see instead of the old big desk that served many purposes, you have a beautiful, sleek desk with good COVID shields on it. And whereas in the past, if a parent brought a child to the library, they had to drill all the way to the back to find the children's room. Now it's right on the left. And instead of having it to have a dedicated librarian, all the librarians in the front of the library can serve to keep an eye on the kids. And the parents, when they come in, can choose to either sit in the little childlike chairs, which is always fun, but not necessarily the most comfortable, or they can go right across to the adult section, which is opposite now, when you go in opposite the new children's area, and they can pick up a book, they can get their adult books there. And we have had a change in how we do the books. We get the books by a leasing program now, and they come cataloged and wrapped with the nice plastic book wrappers, so that all that work is taken out of our librarians' hands. It saves a lot of time. Now, what we really need to make this setup work the best from you is 2 part-time staff members. What the 2 part-time staff members would do is they would allow the library to do off-site programming. Right now, they can do morning programming on-site, but they don't have the coverage to do off-site programming. That off-site programming is not a trivial thing because it allows us to do partnerships with the schools and with bridges, with other community organizations. What that allows is us to apply for grants, and the grants very often look to or require community partnerships. They ask, how many community organizations are you partnering in? Right now, it's difficult to do because of COVID, but someday we're going to reach some kind of equilibrium where we can do that. And the part-time positions allow the partnerships. The other thing they allow us to do is to go to 40 hours a week. Again, we're at 25 hours a week right now. That limits the grants we can apply for, as well as the flexibility. Right now, if one of the full-timers gets sick, the library can't open unless we pull a surfer in to help. Not a surfer, I'm sorry, a lifeguard.
I like a surfer. Surfers would be kind of cute.
Sam, can we just be clear when you say adult books that we don't have adult type books? We have books for mature people.
Well,
I don't want people to take that the wrong way.
Okay, let me say, books for mature people also sounds kind of filthy.
I was
So
gonna
let
say
me say,
that's not much
Just
better.
make sure we don't. So
No porn.
realize, I don't want people to think that we have adult type books there because we don't.
we have books with adult reading level requirements. There, that eliminates everything filthy, right? Okay,
Thank you.
as well as the large print books. Anyway, and I want to also say it's really a pleasure to serve on a volunteer board. And I want to make sure that you guys remember how valuable they are to developing leadership and involvement in government and bringing in people who do not want to touch that political process that you are so familiar with. Anyway, that is my report.
Thank you. And let us just say, I think I can speak for all of us, how much we understand the value of our volunteer boards. I mean, we've gone from 7 to 18 on our education board, and we really appreciate the work that you do. We can be so proud of our library. Years ago, the county wanted to take it. And I'm sure we wouldn't have a library in downtown Lake Worth if the commission at that point had allowed it. So that's a building that I spent many, many hours in as a youth. And I cherish the fact that we still have it. And thank you very much for the report. Commissioner Maliga?
I just wanted to say thank you to the staff at the library and to the Friends of Lake Worth Library. I have reached out twice in the past 30 days. Once was for books that they donated for the swag bags for the artist. And Cindy donated 2 great books. One was Imagine and the other one was The Wall. So I want to say thank you for that. I also reached out to Sam and the Friends of the Lake Worth Library for donations for the high school. And they are funding high school books for 9th and 10th graders who are non-English reading currently through their scholastics funding. So thank you for being a great city partner and thank you for volunteering.
Yeah, appreciate it. Any
I'll second that.
Okay, well, second by Commissioner Robinson. Thank you very much, Sam. Very much appreciated. Keep up the good work and please send our thanks to everybody on the board as well.
Will do.
You've done a fine job of representing them. Bye-bye.
Bye, Sam. Everybody loves Sam.
Oh, who hasn't stand up?
Commissioner Boyd.
Oh, Commissioner McBoy, you have a question?
I was just going to thank Sam also and encourage that we as the commission, and I'm sure the library is interested in it, that we try, in addition to the Saturday hours, try to add some weekday evening hours for folks that are working and can't get there until after hours.
Thank you.
We
Okay,
are able to do those on an incidental basis because with the full-time employees, it just changes. They just shift from a morning to an evening. So especially, we used to have evening programming, as you may recall. That's not hard to do.
thank you.
Well, I was thinking more of regular hours for just clients to come or customers, whatever one calls it, patrons to come in. I know that I've heard that request a number of times that if we could get some evening hours. Maybe the part-time positions would help make that possible. I don't know.
They certainly would fund them.
Fund them. We'll do our best. Thank you. Next, I'm going to get a certificate because I completed Florida League of Cities new Institute for Elected Municipal Officials. And
Okay, 10 minutes.
Sarah, actually, I'm surprised I'm getting this because we have to go and finish it. but
I want
I
to
didn't rat you out.
congratulate you. from
Thank
the
you very much.
Institute Of League of
I
Cities
appreciate it.
as an
There's,
elected official.
thank you very much. And I'll tell you, this is a really good program. Some of us, I didn't actually finish it. I had one more day to do it. But we're going up, a few of us are going up in October to Orlando it's a wonderful, you get elected, it's like, hi, you're the mayor, hi, you're a city commissioner, like, oh, okay, thank you, what does that mean? So it's just a good basic course, and it includes an ethics course, which of course is very, very important. And thank you, Commissioner, Vice Mayor Robinson, for your
Congratulations.
excellent presentation. Thank you very much.
Moving right along.
Moving right along. No questions, no public comment? Okay, commission reports, liaison reports and comments. We want to start with perhaps Commissioner Maliga today.
I will keep it short, keep it brief.
Thank you.
Because we have
We are
a hefty agenda and we're running behind. Just been reaching out to the community. I did publish a newsletter for my first quarter in office, which we put out all over social media, just kind of giving a highlight of the things that I've been doing in City Hall. I want to thank everyone for the donations that I've been receiving for the school supply fundraising that I'm doing for the high school and for Barton Elementary. This weekend, as I mentioned, I was on WPBR, which the mayor was on the previous week, reaching out to our Haitian speaking community, making sure they know everything that's happening in the city in regards to legal aid, funding that's available for rent, school supply drives. And I just want to remind everybody, if you're not vaccinated, please mask up, social distance. We don't want to go backwards. Right, we're looking at the Delta variant getting really serious, and just please social distance, wear your mask, and be safe.
Thank you. Commissioner Stokes?
No,
We're jumping around.
I'm excited to get, the Education Task Force will be launching tomorrow evening. So it's mostly just going to be procedural and setting up, when are we meeting, how often are we meeting, where are we meeting, who's going to be the liaison for each school, and setting the topics that we want to study. So I'm excited to launch that tomorrow night.
Thank you. Commissioner Robinson?
Yeah, quickly, the 19th, the Gulfstream is going to be meeting with the public to further explain the progress of their project. Want to wish Commissioner McVoy speedy recovery. I want to congratulate Adopt a Family. There's a national magazine, The Week, and they awarded Adopt a Family as a charity, a commendable charity to donate. The efficiency of their board and their governance is exemplary. The tourism meetings are moving along, and that's a great thing. Education charter review. The citizens of Lake Worth are fantastic. That's it for me.
Thank you. Commissioner McVoy?
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Robinson, and all of you for support on the health. I'm happy to report that I passed my COVID-19 test, so I do not have that. I'm hoping that whatever other viral thing will go away soon, and I would love to be back in person at the meetings. Thank you for the reminder on August 19th for the meeting. I believe it's scheduled at the casino concerning the Gulfstream. So I hope that the community will have a good presentation, both from staff as far as some of the technical aspects of the zoning and so on, and also a presentation, obviously, from the Guild family with the developers. I am watching very closely and keeping up on articles about COVID-19, particularly the Delta variant. Very alarmed to see that hospitalization rates are shooting up. Deaths are following them. Children are showing up. The children's hospitals are very concerned. I can't say enough how many doctors are saying, and also from all accounts, 99% of the hospitalizations are people who were not vaccinated. And that we are putting a burden, an unreasonable burden, by not being vaccinated on the healthcare system, who was burned out with trying to protect us last year. it's really incumbent on us to social distance, to mask, to get vaccinated. I mean, just do it. You're not doing it only for yourself, you're doing it for the whole community. So I hope that we can keep, at this point, it's not availability of the vaccine, it's convincing people to read those stories of people who are on the way out because they didn't get vaccinated and make decisions accordingly.
Thank you. Thank you. And we're glad that we hope that you're feeling a little bit better, and we hope that you continue so you can join us again in person. My turn. Well, this past week, there were a few events that I went to. On Friday night, there was a neighborhood fair, children's fair up at Sunset Ridge Park, and it was well attended. It was beautiful. It was run by the churches. I met with Pastor Chris from the church across the street there. And it was really good just to see kids out playing and having a great time. And I thank whoever put it together and hope they do more. It was a lot of fun to see. And then on Saturday, the Sugar Plum and Grumpy Growler is a business on Lucerne Avenue, right across from the post office, Marianne Weber's Bruce Weber's old building. They are a couple that has been really steadfast in staying in our city, even though their entrance into the city with the city staff was a little unfortunate. They had on Saturday a festival. It was African American. It was music and art and things to buy and delicious food. And it was really, I went down there with a friend of mine, and it was really great. One of the things that I was sort of sad about was, although it was on Facebook and it was sort of advertised, when I talked to people, it was friends of these folks that came up from Miami to go to this event. And I was hoping to see more of our local folks there. So I would encourage us, when we see a local vendor, a local store doing something, let's support them and get out. I'm going to be going to the school board just to introduce the city of Lake Worth and the Lake Worth Beach and our education committee, just to let the school board know that we are watching them and we want to know what they're going to do for our children. And we have 17 or 18 very active citizens that are going to be coming to them, and they better be ready. Tourism, with the tourism, we're having a task force that's starting. And last week I was able to go to the Palm Beach County Junior State College. A class their project was to go they divided the city into 4 districts, and they came back with presentations about what's a strong thing about tourism, what's a challenge for tourism. And it was a real life event for them to have to have a project and put it, present it. And it was really fun to see what they thought was interesting, and just it's kind of hooked into the fact that we are having a tourism task force start. Last but not least, a sad note, Dennis Dorsey, for those of us that have been around for a long time. Dennis Dorsey was a mayor, he was a commissioner, he was a force of nature. The pool at the Lake Worth High School is named after Dennis Dorsey. Sadly, Mr. Dorsey passed just a few days ago, and I want to send my heartfelt condolences out to Doris, his wife, very active in the Lake Worth Alumni Association when we were doing the centennial celebration a few years ago. He and his wife hosted us, and the host of the committee, and was very supportive of that. And it is a great loss to the city. He was one of the commissioners when I was hired in 1993. He was one of the commissioners that hired me, and it's a loss to the city. And I just want to put my thoughts out to his family.
Thank you for letting us know.
Yeah.
Thank you for letting us know.
Sure. Okay, and with that, I think we're done with our part. Now we're
One question for the mayor: when you go to the school board, are you bringing the bus with all of us?
Nope.
We weren't invited.
You're not invited. No, we're going to come. This is really just to give them a taste of who we are. Because
You're the advance committee.
I'm the advanced one, because
It's the appetizer.
we're going to the amuse-bouche. Because we're going to come as a group. All of us are going to storm the school board as soon as the education committee is a little more organized and identified. And I'm also in touch with Erica Whitfield, our school board person, and asking her what can we ask from the school board. And so we want to go there organized. I mean, anybody's welcome, of course. I just wanted to go up there and just tell them that we are watching them and hoping for good things from them, because our kids need a lot of help.
Thank you.
So with that, we are now in public participation of non-agenda items and the consent agenda. I have a question for the clerk. Madam Clerk?
Yes, Madam Mayor.
Is there public comment on the consent agenda?
Yes, I have one on consent and one for consent and one just for public participation.
Okay, and I have a couple on the consent. So when do we take public comment on the, do we vote to pass it first and then take public comment? I think that's.
No, it's part of public participation.
In general.
Oh, okay, so, all right, great. So we'll just put that on, they'll all be together. So
We know,
that would be now,
right?
that's what I was just,
No, I'm asking.
oh. Yeah, so public participation of non-agenda items on the consent agenda. So let's start. We have quite a few here. How many do you have, Madam Clerk?
I have two. One is quite lengthy.
Okay, why don't you get started then?
Okay, and I will be setting a timer. So the first is from Jennifer Calderon, who lives in District 1 of the amazing city of Lake Worth Beach. She writes, I'm also a graduate of Lake Worth High School, class of 1992. I have a vested interest in the above referenced RFP that was signed off on by the city of Lake Worth Beach, which will be referred to as CLWB in the rest of this email. As not only a resident of Lake Worth Beach, but as one of the 5 companies that participated in this bidding process for vehicle towing and storage services. My company, Palm Beach Finest Towing, Inc., participated in this bidding process and truly believe that as the only Latino-owned, majority woman-owned business out of the 5 participants, we would have landed a shot at this opportunity. That was not the case. I am enclosing a series of documents showing the longstanding relationship between Lake Worth Beach and Priority Towing, which won the bid. Upon reviewing these documents, it is clear that no one else had a shot. Not only was this unfair, Priority Towing was the most expensive company of the 5 that applied. Palm Beach Finest Towing, Inc. was the most cost-effective overall. I intend to outline my findings of this process, and I have obtained all this information directly from the city by way of requesting the records via the Sunshine Law. Here is the result of my findings. 1, Priority Towing was awarded the RFP on June 16, 2021. The letter signed off by the Finance Department reads, the city of Lake Worth Beach has determined that Priority Towing is of the best value to the city and is being recommended for award of this solicitation. 2, addendum number 3, which was released on May 26, 2021, stated that the city may award multiple contracts that will be used on rotating basis and as considered to be the best interest of the city. 3, there are all 3 voters from the city, parking customer service, Joshua Gomez, garage manager, Jeff Taylor, and assistant public works director, Felipe Lafaso, and I have included each signed affidavit and scorecard from each voting member, as well as the overall scorecard from each company. 4, on June 1st, 2021, the parking division wrote a letter of recommendation for Priority Towing, and on February 20th, 2018, Felipe Lafaso wrote a recommendation for Priority Towing as well. These 2 departments are 2 of the 3 votes needed to secure this contract. According to these documents and looking at the signed affidavits from all 3 voters, this could be considered unfair. 5, rates and cost to the city is the biggest issue here. Priority Towing and Palm Beach Finest Towing had the same rates and revenue to the city at $48,925. The biggest discrepancy is that Priority Towing advised that all Class A, that's the end of the time for that. The second is from Shirley Joy Jackson, who wrote, I'm a retired Palm Beach County educator, formerly the school district's first district-wide grant writer, a safe schools coordinator, a research project manager, etc. As a retiree, I spent years as the grant team leader at El Sol, Jupiter's Neighborhood Resource Center. I do not live in Lake Worth Beach, but I do have 2 adorable great nieces who live over in Commissioner Stokes' district. So your town is special to me. I was delighted to hear of the recently established Education Task Force. This is my message to them. Congratulations to Lake Worth Beach Education Task Force. Knowing what the facts are stacks the deck for success. May all your efforts increase resiliency, reduce risks, and empower lives and community. Please consider the health and safety impacts on students and families as you review how Access for All intends to serve your community needs. Then I add a little bit of an alert, a fact that needs to be considered that the wireless industry vendors probably did not emphasize with anyone involved in this project. The FCC has not updated the human exposure limits in 25 years. Their refusal to update is now being challenged in federal court for being arbitrary, capricious, and not evidence-based. I have now completed 4 global EMF monitoring measures in Lake Worth Beach. 2 of them are on the PDF that I sent in. I would appreciate time to personally explain the efforts and implications of what I am observing. I am at your service. That is the end of the public comments received online.
Thank you. I have a few cards up here. Did you read one from Jennifer Calderon?
Yes.
I did.
Okay, because I have a card here from her and I don't know if she's here or whether.
I'm here, but she read it.
Okay, thank you.
I didn't know she was gonna do that.
Okay, we do our best to serve. Deidre Walker. Is Deidre Walker here? Todd Velez is here. And Todd was one of the organizers of the party on Friday night. It was a great success.
Hello, yes, this one.
Yep.
July 25th, Our Savior Lutheran renovated finished and completed its renovation of its gymnasium into its sanctuary, which had blown down in 2005. So you missed that, but I'm gonna give you the number. You can contact the minister and get a tour of that. That will also be the site of a pumpkin patch, which downtown has not had a pumpkin patch for 8 years. So Calvary held that location. So that's a first there. So be aware through October. And the second location is the Lake Osborne Presbyterian Church, which is on 6th Avenue. And that's up on the hill, and that will have a pumpkin patch as well, first year. They're also looking over, it's been found out that the old drive-in movie, The Blob, is directed and written by Presbyterian minister, so that it's tailored for the Presbyterian or Presbyterian church. Address it with this moralistic and corny, quite modern with the COVID is being the blob nowadays, whereas the McCarthy era was the blob.
Where is that event? Will you only go
That's
to?
at that'll be at the Presbyterian church, but it's also tailored for any church. And it could work downtown as well.
When will that be shown?
That'll be in October.
Okay.
October of this year, and through the end of the month. And the Sunlight Church, which is the old same thing, the Christian Reform, they worked with the rec department and the neighborhood association, Sunset Ridge, to pull that off. And nearly 300 people showed up, and it would be a yearly event. They've done other things that were in the park, but primarily behind the church, but that's going to be a yearly event. So you just need to, you'll see in the paper with the Herald and the Lakewood Herald and the Observer, which covered that. Pastor Chris Voss, Voss means fox, so you can tease them. Zorro means fox as well. So we didn't see any foxes that live up in the hill, the Florida fox, but we did see a lot. It was a very positive event, and they were very proud of it. So keep your eye on that. The rec department couldn't attend because I guess COVID kind of wiped them out. So they did loan out their equipment. So the kids had a great time, and the neighborhood had a great time. Some things with the mid, it was promised that a church that started there in that property, that there would be a marker. So I did speak to some of the developers that they would put some marker for the old Bethel Church, which is Ira Stanfield, which is a songwriter.
Thank you. Time's up.
So I'd like that.
So it's going to happen.
So,
okay, great. Who in this room remembers Our Savior Lutheran Church when they actually had the church?
I went to school there.
So, okay, our savior? I love it. And then one day we woke up and it was gone. It was the weirdest thing. It was horrible. Wilma took that church down. It just collapsed. Dana Torres. Welcome back.
Thank you again. Just to kind of pick up from the conversation I was trying to have before about really getting in touch with migrant families. I was hoping to see if there's maybe a way for us to drop off information at the local businesses that they shop at, so that way they feel a little bit more comfortable having those conversations and maybe getting the information out there for them. In addition to that, I wanted to also start considering our unhoused neighbors. Right now, because of the eviction, I want to make sure that they're not being forgotten as far as making resources available to them. Obviously, the only solution is housing. And so I'm curious about, I know there was an issue with the Lord's Place project. I wanted to see if that's something that is being considered and talked about so we can move forward on that. Talk about other ways of providing housing within our community, maybe restructuring some buildings that are empty. I know within my neighborhood, there's so many empty apartment buildings that could be utilized for that. And most importantly, right now, because of COVID, ensuring that they're receiving the healthcare that they need, in addition to access to vaccines. So kind of understanding what is being done so we can communicate that to them. I visit them and I know that right now they're scared. And because of the increased police presence at Bryant Park, they feel harassed, they feel they're being segregated. So I want to be able to offer them resources and offer them outlets so they can attain the support that they really need right now. But besides that, it's really just bringing up those points and making sure that we're having those conversations and making those conversations public so we know what's going on.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Madam Mayor?
Yep.
Can I just remind anybody who's reading public comment to state their name and address
Yes, thank
for
you.
the record?
And her address is 631 North J Street. Dana Torres. Brandy Cook.
Hi, Brandy Cook, 510 Northeast 3rd Street, Boynton Beach. However, I am a property owner in the city of Lake Worth Beach, and I also am a business owner in the city of Lake Worth Beach. I'll make it short. Basically, I just wanted to touch base on the towing agreement with Priority Towing. First and foremost, I would like to say that I am a member of Bids and Tenders. We were supposed to get notification when this RFP came about. However, myself and several other companies did not get the notification through the RFP company. Secondly, last year, we were in a big to-do with the city of Lake Worth Beach and Priority Towing over the fact that they continually had a singletary contract with the city of Lake Worth Beach for towing. That came about that then it opened back up to several other companies. Not only if you do take the contract with Priority Towing, it's going to impact the residents adversely because they're going to have to pay more fees. The city of Lake Worth Beach is going to be paying more fees for city vehicles, for tire changes, for jump starts. I mean, just $75 for a jump start, you can call AAA and get it for $35. Why would you want to use your contracted towing company? Secondly, not only will it impact the residents that if their car gets towed in the city of Lake Worth Beach, let's just say on F Street, they're going to go all the way out to the end of Southern Boulevard to pick it up. It doesn't make sense. And thirdly, not only does it impact residents, and yes, it would impact the city because it would be not cost effective, but you're putting other small businesses out of business. There's about 10 other small companies that work the city of Lake Worth Beach rotation as it is now. And we fought really, really hard to get back on. At some point in time, we all got taken off without notification. And you guys, as of 2016, you had a sole contract with Priority Towing and no one knew about it. And then when we found out about it, we fought tooth and nail and we finally got put back on just last year to now be taken off again. It just really impacts us as small businesses.
So there was a rotation and now there isn't?
That's correct. We are on a rotation with PBSO through the city of Lake Worth Beach. So if someone gets crashed on F Street, it goes my company, your company, their company. Well, now what we're asking is that that be solely one company.
And how long has it been just one company?
Well, for the past year and a half, it hasn't been one company, it's been a rotation.
So this is new.
So this is previously, I believe, starting in 2016, it was supposed to be a rotation, but Priority Towing was the only one that started getting the calls solely. We don't know when that came into effect. I have all the documentation because we went through our lawyer to talk with City Commission, and everybody basically passed the buck. They're like, we don't know about it. Talk to this person. We don't know about it. Talk to this person. So finally, the city attorney, Christy Udo, said, okay, well, this is what we're gonna do. We're going to open it back up to all the companies that were taken off. You know,
Okay, good. Keep going.
so they were gonna open it back up to all the companies that were taken off. So for 3 years, all these companies lost revenue. Small businesses, I'm not talking about, big,
Yeah.
you know, we're small,
Yeah, sure.
you know, so now we fought tooth and nail to get back on this rotation to work within the city. And now it's being taken away again.
Madam Mayor,
Yeah,
this is public comment and this is on consent agenda.
right, I know.
I got an email 4 weeks ago about this
I have this one.
from Ms. Jennifer.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. I just want you guys to know that when I got that email, I went to Valentina. I dissected what I was told was happening, looked at all the bids that were out there and how they were judged, right? So there's little boxes.
Ranked, yeah.
Because of that is why I brought the procurement policy changes forward 2 weeks ago.
Mhm.
Because of things that I thought we could be missing the box on,
Mhm.
being minority owned, veteran owned,
Mhm.
and
Local.
SBA registered and women owned. Now, Christie has informed me and the city attorney, and Juan is like, okay, now we're to the point where we might have to spend money, like upwards of $25,000 for a study to make sure that we don't get ourselves into a pickle, to make sure that we are not missing the mark on making sure that we give a certain amount of business to minority SBA and women-owned businesses. So I don't know if you want to interject, Glenn, since this lady's up here.
Sorry, we are 2 women-owned businesses.
I understand.
We don't.
And I understand, but
About it.
we're taking this out of order, and I apologize, people who are in the room.
Sorry.
But this is part of that procurement policy conversation.
Yeah.
Because when I met with Valentina, I said, explain to me how this worked, what happened, and there is nothing in our current procurement policy that gives any extra points to women, people who are SBA certified or a minority or veterans.
For local.
So now it's to the point where I'm being told, Glenn, if you could, that, what is that,
Disparity study.
thank you, we have to do a disparity study to make sure we don't get ourselves in a pickle by changing our procurement policy, which will then cost upwards of $25,000. And Delray Beach is in the process of doing one right now.
So where does that leave us?
Should we be pulling this off the? If we want to talk about it?
Wait, let
Wait,
me
let's, I think one more.
let me introduce a very separate item than that.
No, I'm just saying, but this is part of
Okay.
why I brought this up.
And I appreciate your comments, Commissioner League. We need to keep the 2 separate items, the 2 items separate. There's the issue of reviewing our procurement policy, which
Right.
we're in the middle of, the Commissioner League's comments. Something that needs to be considered is following through a disparity study, because there's federal guidelines. We have to be very careful of not inadvertently creating discrimination between genders. And there's some classes that are protected, and I'll stop pretending to be loyal on that. The item that's before you is to award a contract. It's
Right.
before you because it's gone through legal sufficiency, it's gone through the staff process, and we feel comfortable with awarding the contract, and that's why it's before you. Now, Glenn can speak to, there's 2 other options not to award it tonight, which one of them is you become the evaluation committee. We throw this thing out and we start all over.
Which, trust me, I've looked at the evaluation. I don't want to do that. I don't want to be the evaluation committee.
Who's our purchasing manager, one of our assistant directors of finance is on the Zoom as well, that can speak specifically to the item before you. My encouragement to Commissioner League after speaking with legal is because there's a legal ramifications and the fiscal impact of a disparity is to bring it forward for a discussion at the subsequent commission meeting to get direction and consensus to go ahead and be willing to pay for legal time to go through a disparity study, which is a whole different process. West Palm's had to go through it, the county had to go through it, Ray's going through it, and there's a cost to it.
Well, I'm bringing this up because of the fact that we have 2 people here are women owned, and I want them to know that it didn't fall on deaf ears, that we're looking at policies that could effectively change how that moves forward.
But this is a 3-year contract.
Right, and my understanding from our conversation with legal is that even with preferences in place, wouldn't change the outcome of the bid.
With the scoring system that's in place by the people who did the scoring.
Should we take this? I mean, if we want to discuss this any further, I feel like we should probably be taking off the consent agenda.
The people that did the story were the same.
All right, look,
Really getting off track on the
Yeah.
public comment.
Yeah.
I am, yeah.
Right, you have an item here in front of you that's embedded through all the processes. If in the future, the city decides to go through this disparity study, and depending on what it says, you may or may not be allowed to create preferences. Veterans preferences, probably, race, probably not, gender, up in the air. That's just a bird's eye view of it. But this is simply an award of a contract. And again, as Juan said, the staff went through the process, and your choices here are pretty simple. You award the contract, and you accept the staff's recommendation, or you throw it out and go back out for bid. And the third one is you become the selection committee, which we're not recommending at all. The time for filing a bid protest is passed.
Oh,
So you're kind of opening up a can.
did
of
they not
worms.
do that?
No.
That we were not notified. There was not only myself, but several other companies were not notified of the bid. And that's where the problem comes in. We were not notified.
Okay.
We were told back in July of 2020 that if the bid process came, that the city attorneys would notify us of any procurement that was to come about for the city of Lake Worth Beach for any new towing contract. That did not happen.
Well, who's,
And I know it went through you, Mr. Flynn. I know.
Okay.
Right, so
well, I just have a question. Who, when you say we were not notified, in general, not with this particular item, how do companies find out that there's an RFP?
So they obviously know there's an RFP because they bid.
Oh, they did bid?
No, we did not have the opportunity to bid.
I think
I
5
did not.
companies bid.
Okay.
So.
But out of 5, there's 10 companies on, only 5 bid because all the other ones weren't notified.
Well, again,
So there's something
I don't know that we
that
can
failed.
be
Excuse
responsible
me.
for notifying every single company.
Yeah, isn't it on
the?
the company to keep an eye? I mean, don't they have services that keep an eye
Yes,
out for
That's
RFPs?
bids and tenders, which is done through your web, which you guys use bids and tenders. They failed.
And it was
they
on
failed-
there?
They failed to notify half of the
But
companies.
was it on our website?
I believe it was.
I believe
Okay, so I mean, I have to say, part of that is responsibility for keeping up with stuff.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Why did, maybe Juan knows, or I don't know who else would be here. No, why are we not doing the round robin? Again, and we're just doing one?
I don't know, I'd have to talk to Captain Barrett, because
Okay.
PBSL is involved in towing as well.
Thank you.
But I do have Valentina on Zoom that can help answer some process-related questions to the RFP, including how we notify and the process of notifying potential bidders. Valentina, can you, she's there.
Can we move forward with public comment? If we want to pull this
Yeah.
off the consent agenda, we can pull it off and discuss it further.
Sure. Sure.
I would agree with that, that we ought to pull it if we're, it sounds like it merits discussion, so I would be in favor of pulling it also. I think we ought to do it that way.
I would really appreciate that. Just a second consideration.
Well, yeah, I mean, staff is, so if we're gonna pull it off, do we want to pull it off?
Yeah, I'll do a motion to pull item, what item is it?
For discussion
Off the
later,
consent agenda for discussion.
today
It's
though.
item D.
D.
So it would become new business G,
Yeah,
correct?
yeah. New business G.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Last but not least, Ms. Fisher.
Fisher, 508 North A Street. I wasn't going to say anything other than read what was on my phone. It was the message to you all, but if you're on public comment, stick to public comment. It's not fair to start having a discussion about a business item during public comment. It really isn't. And you need to, I'm giving you some advice as a resident, a property owner, and someone who comes and sits here.
Mhm.
You have an ability at the beginning of your meeting to revise the agenda.
Yep.
You do it then. If you don't do it then, it should only be sort of an emergency, something that really needs to be changed to do it. And you've done it twice tonight to change your agenda, and it's frustrating.
Okay.
And my whole point of coming up here was to read you this notice that came out about a little over an hour ago. CDC issues new eviction moratorium for counties seeing substantial levels of COVID community spread. It expires in early October. And that was only as an information, since it was a topic, it was something new that came out, and clearly I think Palm Beach County probably would fall in that category. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so do we, except for the agenda item that we pulled the consent, do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Oh, do you have the minutes?
Are we there? Wait, hold on one second.
No, we got the minutes first.
Yes, I've been reminded. Okay.
Sorry.
Next is approval of the minutes. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve as is.
Second by Commissioner McFoy. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Now the consent agenda, excluding item D. Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second by Commissioner Stokes, I guess. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay. Thank you. All right, now we have public hearings. A, ordinance number, let me just get to it.
Motion to approve.
It's the
Oh, probably Glenn has to read it first.
second reading.
Yes, the city attorney has to read it by title. Thank you.
Okay, ordinance number 2021-10 is an ordinance to approve Christian and City of Lake Worth Beach amending chapter 23 of the Lake Worth Beach Code of Ordinances related to collective management standards and manufactured homes and private residential elevation standards, front applicability, severability, conflicts of application, and effective date.
Thank you. Do
Motion.
we have a motion by Commissioner McBoyd? Do we have a second?
Second.
By Commissioner Malega, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. B is second reading of the future land use map for the future land designation. Mr. Tursivy, would you read the ordinance?
Ordinance number 2021-05, the City of Lake Worth Beach Law amending the city's comprehensive plan future land use map for the small scale map amendment from the future land use FLD designation mixed use east MUE to the FLD designation of public recreation open space PROS. Property located at 32 South Beach Street and more fully described in Exhibit A, finding the conflicting ordinance of repeal, current severability, and applying the effective date.
Thank you. This is second reading ordinance. Is there any new information or presentation to be made?
This is the Royal Poinciana Park.
What?
Royal Poinciana Park.
Motion to approve.
That would be information.
All right, motion to approve by Commissioner Boy, second by
Second.
Commissioner Malega, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Aye.
Thank you. Ordinance 21-06, second reading. Mr. Attorney, would you read it?
Yes, Madam Mayor, ordinance number 2021-06 is the City of Lake Worth Beach, Florida, amending the city's official zoning map from the zoning district for single family residential SFR to public recreation open space PROS to the property 32 South Beach Street, more specifically described as today.
Do you have any public comment or new information?
No new information, thank you.
Okay, any public?
No public comment either.
Thank you. Do you have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Unfinished,
To protect property, park property.
I'm sorry?
It's always good to protect public park property.
It is. Okay, unfinished business. Item A, follow to the beach complex public-private partnership. Who's going to present on it?
We have our consultant, Madam Mayor. Really quick, I'll do a quick introduction. And the reason we brought this forward is essentially it's informational to talk about public-private partnerships. And about 2 years ago, time has passed with the pandemic. We engaged Mr. Gilmore and Taylor, who works with Mr. Gilmore, to represent the city through a public-private partnership conversation. And it's not just focused on the beach. It can be any potential triple P that the city finds itself engaged for pursuing. So Mr. Gilmore was retained as our consultant to help guide us through those conversations, as the city hasn't been through a complex public-private partnership in the past. As we move forward and talk about potential development opportunities, whether it's at the beach, maybe one day it's a new city hall complex, public-private partnerships, and that's no indication that we're considering one. It's just as an example. It's very important that we get everybody up to at least a foundation of understanding of what exactly is a public-private partnership. And Mr. Gilmore specializes in basically serving as the owner's rep for the municipal side of a potential development process. There's always a developer side. So Jim Gilmore specializes on the municipal side. So Jim has agreed to kind of give an update to the commission. And I'm sure there'll be plenty of time at the end for some question and answering. It's of great interest. Obviously, the city in the past, before our new elected body came, there was a lot of work done at the beach, specifically about what to do with the pool, the vacant space, and other potential amenities up there. So without further ado, Mr. Gilmore, if you want to go ahead and take over.
Thank you. Thank you, Juan.
Are you looking for action on this? Why isn't this under presentations?
No action. It's unfinished business because it's a continuation of a prior commission item. So we felt it was more appropriate under unfinished to continue to try to finish.
And how long does Mr. Gilmore have to do this?
You could probably run through this in 15 minutes, Mr. Gilmore.
I would say, and hopefully a little bit less than that, so we have time for some conversation and dialogue.
Okay.
So we're going to share the screen, and thank you, Juan, for that introduction. We were engaged, you are correct, in the fall of 2019 to discuss public-private partnerships, to define it, and to review that with the City Commission at that time. And we made that presentation in January of 2020, and we were asked to focus specifically on the beach property, but to develop and come up with concepts based on definitions of how, based upon the municipal desire to enter into P3s for other projects throughout Lake Worth Beach. And we opened with a definition of public-private partnerships. And I'd like to, if we can go to that slide 3, Taylor, there you go. It's the collaboration of a public entity and a private entity to structure, negotiate, and implement the finance, design, development, construction, and operation of buildings. Important point. Buildings include, but are not limited to, commercial, residential, parking, and governmental facilities. I promise this is the last slide that I'll read, but I do want to put that up there. All of this ultimately is driven by the public sector guidance on what you desire and want to achieve. The political will, whether it's on the casino project or others, it's all up to you to make that decision based on what your objectives are. What we're going to talk about are the summary of stages regarding developer selection after you've gone through an exercise to determine what types of projects that you might want to do. And by the way, let me say at the beginning that I was very impressed with the work of your CRA. Your CRA has developed a very, very finely honed skill at putting together public-private partnerships. And one of the things that we absolutely believe in, which became very clear, is while you participate, you have an absolute required return on investment for the participation in the project. We are very, very strong believers that the public sector's interest must always be protected when you're going to be participating in some type of public-private partnership. A successful P3 has got to be win-win. You've got to achieve, as I said, investment and return objectives. Other items are creation of jobs, residential units, and a P3 transaction requires extreme amount of due diligence by you as you move forward. Frequently, you're going to receive unsolicited proposals, which I'm going to talk about in a moment. You may also decide to go through an RFP process, which we'll also review in a moment. But it's important, and I keep coming back to something I said from the beginning. You and the city administration will define what your desired public outcome is, whether it's the development of the casino property, parking garages, other municipal facilities. You must work to define what that public benefit is. On the commercial side, it's important for you to know what the market is, to know if in truth there are indeed developers or public partners that can come into play that can achieve the objective. I said this before, got to have a return on investment calculation. And it's also important as you proceed to work with private developers that you define, at least internally and then externally, what public terms and conditions that you want to meet. And we'll give examples of this in a moment. As you're working with private developers, the developer's got to have the capacity to produce the project. In our career, we've seen so many times where a developer wants to come and work with a municipal agency, and they want to use the public investment as ways and means to get their private deal done, if you will. We don't recommend that. The developer must prove that they've got the capacity to produce a project or produce the work for you with their own investment capacity and a strong track record to make it work. Lastly, and always firstly, is public support. There must be public support for the project, and we're a great believer in having a communication strategy that works to ensure that the public is in support of what you want to do with the public need. You got to take the lead in identifying objectives. It can be infrastructure. I just talked about your redevelopment program. CRA is doing a great job. Public parking. There are ways and means to structure public parking programs with the private developer where the developer is sharing risk and the public's going to win. Municipal facilities. We see more and more these days where P3s are being done with private developers to produce necessary municipal facilities. And you're going to hear me repeating these a lot. Secure local government support for development objectives. Understand the market. Part of community outreach is to ensure that those within the community are aware of what can be done. And your local partners, your community business leadership must know of what you want to do so that they can buy into it. And there must be a communication, a community outreach plan to secure support for the project for whatever it might be. Developer solicitation. There are several ways that this can work. And I'm coming back to something I said before. Your objectives should be known. And at that point, then we can define some of the other things we just talked about. And then we can talk about how we attract developers to come and work with us. And by the way, this process is okay for commercial retail projects or municipal facilities. You can issue a request for information to see who's interested. You can issue a request for qualifications to see who's interested, that they then can go to request for proposals. As I mentioned to you earlier, we prepared a suggested RFP for the casino property. Next slide there, Taylor. The two-step process eliminates of the RFI is more common. RFQ determines interest. Each approach should be carefully considered, but there must be a lot of due diligence done in advance before we go to that step. I do know that, and this is a new part of the presentation, I do know that at times you have received unsolicited proposals. Florida statute allows you to accept unsolicited proposals. And if you are going to do that, then you have the right to negotiate with it. But we do point out here that you would have to advertise that proposal to see if there was any other interest over a certain time frame. When you're evaluating unsolicited proposals, and I should probably change this slide to say evaluation of proposals, period. Each of these things must be a part of it. You need to know what it's going to be, what the performance schedule is, and more importantly, the capacity to make it work so that you're evaluating everything if you were going to accept a proposal through an RFP or an unsolicited proposal. These are ways and means which you can participate: direct financing, land lease, future tax revenues, public guarantees, leasing of space, public guarantees of private financing. I would make a very important point here. Many of the tools that your CRA is using, you can also use. You have the same mechanism to take those same techniques and use them for a public-private partnership outside the CRA. Again, this is the same items. Many of these things are used by your CRA. You have the same opportunity and potential to use them now. I call it a rev grant, but I notice your CRA is doing that. That's where they're rebating a portion of the taxes back to the developer over a certain period of time to cause the project to occur. And I say this again, you can use tax increment within and outside of approved redevelopment districts. It's just a different tax stream. Contract negotiations, again, many of the things that we have to do in terms of doing the due diligence to make sure it can work. And then internally, you go through what if scenarios to ensure what happens if there's a failure. And this is where I always say, you need good negotiators, you need good transactional work to work with you, and you also need a good lawyer. It's all about financing, and it's all about risk analysis. Who's at risk, risk sharing, and these are the measurement techniques that we talk about. And always that last point, the financing capacity and ability to produce on the part of your private sector partner. These are some examples that we would talk about that we've been involved in. I'd like to ask my colleague Taylor Mejia to touch briefly on some of the transactional analysis that went in there. And we always had this one important part as we have approached P3s in the last 5 to 10 years, is that public money frequently needs to go in last. Taylor.
Thanks, Jim. In the interest of time, I'll just hit at a high level the public participation that happened in these projects. So the Laura Trio is a project that is in our Jacksonville City Council right now. It's a downtown building, and it was important to preserve the historic nature of the building. It'll be turned into a hotel, and on the ground floor, retail, restaurant space, a bodega grocery. The city is considering 3 loans, 2 forgivable loans to give to the developer. And they have included clawbacks in their negotiations to make sure that if the project doesn't come off of the ground, or if the project's completed and then refinanced or sold to another company, that the city has a way to recoup what they put in. The district is a very large project on our South Bank in downtown. It's over 30 acres. The city approved a couple of years ago almost 80 million in incentives for this project. Up to 53 million of the incentives were for the REV grant that Jim mentioned. So they're recaptured enhanced value. And the great part about that is this project took a couple of years to get off the ground. So the city wasn't out any money. The grant doesn't kick in until they begin paying property taxes and they're on the tax roll. There was also a significant amount of money, over $20 million, where the city agreed to pay for the infrastructure, water and sewer, sidewalks, a public open space. They paid that to the developer to include in the site. 220 Riverside was a mixed-use development, over 300 apartment units with retail on the ground floor. And the same thing here, a REV grant was utilized to attract the developer. And that was a REV grant of up to 5 million over 20 years. And this project is built and we're seeing the benefits of it now. So a couple examples that you all might be more familiar with in Palm Beach County, the IPIC in Delray Beach. This is one where the Delray Beach CRA put out an RFP for about 1.5 acres just south of Atlantic Ave. And they chose IPIC from the responses. So this was a movie theater. IPIC moved their corporate headquarters here, office space, retail, restaurants on the ground floor. And what was exciting about this project was that they did sell the land to the developer. It was CRA owned. And then the CRA also gave the developer incentives. They built a parking garage, and a portion of the parking spaces were reserved for public use. And the CRA did participate. I think it was over $400,000 to reserve those public parking spaces and to pay for their maintenance costs. And then we have Marina Village in Riviera Beach. This is a good example of making sure that the city gets, that they have their best interest to think of. So there were 2 respondents to the RFP. For the Marina Village, the phase 2 in Riviera Beach. And the city said, hey, both of you have strengths. We'd actually really like it if you could come together and co-develop the site. They agreed to do that. They're now working on proving their financial capability to move forward with the project. But it's important to remember what you as the commission and the public want to get out of a project and how to best make that happen.
Thanks. As I mentioned, we were asked to look at your wonderful casino property because it is indeed an oceanfront gem. And all of these next two slides come back to our basic points in the beginning. What is your development objective? And then how do we work to achieve it? What would you like to have? Do internal due diligence to move forward to whether it's on this or any other potential opportunity you see a private sector partner wanting to work with you. Next slide there. And these were some of the what ifs that we've talked about. What if demands should say there should be more? What if the pool facilities, if you want to do that, would that be attractive? What if market demand calls for higher intensity uses? These are an example of what if questions that we would suggest on any P3 that you go through and think about as you're formulating how you want to approach a public-private partnership. These were some of the opportunities that we saw on your casino property. This was something that we put out some time ago on next steps on how necessarily to proceed. But again, this was part of our presentation that we presented before, but we always come back and say that these principles are the same for any type of public-private partnership opportunity. Be glad to take any questions.
Thank you very much.
And by the way, Juan, you were right. It was 16 minutes, 30 seconds, just a minute and a half over the 50. You nailed it.
Do I have any questions from the commission? Seeing none, thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you very much, Mayor Rash.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor Robinson, it's good to see you again. It's nice to meet the other members of the commission. Thank you.
I guess my question is with the commission. Thank you. I hope we'll be in touch if this commission makes a decision on moving forward with the oceanfront park and the derelict property that's over there in terms of a pool and underutilized asset for the second floor. So do we want to make a decision on a pool?
Tonight?
That would be okay with me if we did it tonight, but let's.
I think there'll be a lot of upset people because it's not on the agenda.
And
what we're doing is
just remind the commission, we requested some sort of financial estimate of what it would cost to revive the existing pool. I would want to hear from the city manager what the status of that information request is.
That's what I was going to just say. I think we're doing an RFP just to have some idea of what it would take, just the numbers to redo it.
You hit it on the head, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. I try my best. Yeah, Chris, that's what we are. We're doing an RFP, just to have people come and say what what they think it would cost.
Can we get a status when we expect, is that RFP on the street?
Yes, Madam Mayor. Actually, it's going to be an invitation for bid. So we'll use the proper terminology. And it should be out within the next 10 days. At Valentino's, I know we talked about it this morning. We were going down a certain path that would have required utilizing some funds, and we've made a decision not to go down that path and just issue a simple invitation for bid. Here it is. Tell us what it would cost to get this thing open. If possible, to get it open.
Right. Do we have dates on that bid process?
No, I think, and Valentina, you're welcome to chime in. To be fair and not to overpromise and underdeliver, probably within 2 weeks, we can get an invitation for bid out on the street.
And then a deadline for that bid?
Right, and then there's a response period. And then depending on who responds or doesn't respond, we'll pick it up from there and bring whatever is before us forward.
Thank you.
Do we intend to put a deadline on the response?
There's always a deadline.
Again, there's a standard deadline for responses, and Valentina, jog my memory, it's been a while since I've been involved in these. Now in this role, I think we control it. It could be minimum of 30 days. I think it could be up to 90 days or longer.
Good evening, everyone. Yes, it is. We can probably put a bid out in the street in a couple of weeks, and we would probably provide approximately
4 weeks for the contractors to have an opportunity to visit the facilities and investigate everything and provide their bids to us. So that process is going to take approximately 6 weeks. And then after that, through the evaluation process, it's going to take another 2 weeks. So I would say probably up to 2 months if everything goes well.
Okay, if we could get that out a little bit sooner than 2 weeks, that would be great. I think we really.
Yeah, I think we'd all like to see that go a little quicker. And I'm a little curious about the third part, that evaluation. Would not the idea be that, you know, ideally 3 or 4 outfits who have the credentials to do it, inspect the thing, have a chance to get whatever data they need, and then they say, our estimate is X.
Right.
And we get all of those estimates presented to us. I don't know what evaluation by staff there would be, unless it would be, you know, that to make sure they were qualified firms to do it, but that would happen earlier, I would think.
Okay. Commissioner Malika?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I know that this city has spent upwards of $75,000 on these studies. Why are we doing another one?
We're not spending any money. This does not cost anything.
We're just spending time now.
Yeah, we're not
we're
doing any more
not-
studies. We're not going to refresh the Kimley Horn assessment that was done 3 or 4 years ago.
So we're just asking people to give us,
Yeah, kick the tires.
Yeah, what
give us
happened?
a written quote on what you think it would cost. We're not paying for any more studies.
No.
Okay, I
No.
just want to be clear.
No, much too much has been on
Okay.
this already.
For sake of full disclosure, at the initial consensus to move forward with an invitation for bid, maybe a month ago, staff was looking at the Kimley Horn assessment that was done for 3 or 4 years ago, maybe 3 years ago. It stated for X number of dollars, this thing could be reopened.
Right.
Okay. In order to design a scope of service, we felt it would be prudent or smart to just engage them and say, hey, what would it cost to get this up to date? So a scope could be put out. The cost of that estimate's about $30,000. We pulled back from that. It's been my decision as of yesterday to move forward with a simple invitation for bid. We'll do a site visit. Contractors out there know what they know what they know. There's no secrets up there, and we'll get proposals, and then we'll go from there.
Okay, so we're not
That's what we're
spending
doing.
any more money.
So
No.
let's just get the ball moving.
No, I'm a big fan of the pool. We all know that. I just want to make sure that we're not
Just to get
spending
things
more
started.
study money that doesn't need to be spent.
And I would, in good faith, advocate for spending any more money on any studies or any assessments.
Right.
At this point, put an invitation for bid out, which is what the consensus was, and that's what we're gonna do.
Okay.
Let's see where, you know, it's just a good factual starting off point.
There was a report done in 16,
Yeah.
December of 2016 by Bob McAllister. Does everybody have this?
Probably. I've read quite a few things.
Okay, so it clearly.
Getting a little off are we getting a little off?
Yes, rabbit hole.
Presentation. I think we're talking about.
It's really public-private partnerships.
Which we're not good, that's what we're here to talk about.
Well, it's a
If you want to avoid a decision on the pool, we can do that. And we have done it for 5 years.
Herman, I don't know why you say that, because what we're doing is.
5 years has gone by.
We weren't here. And now we are taking a step to get that ball rolling. I think.
And if you've looked at this report, now you all have it. Do you think you need to do another request for information on anything that's changed in this from 2016?
Yes, I do, Commissioner Robinson. I was involved in the commission before, and a resident said, hey, I know a person who's a commercial pool contractor. We invited them in. They gave an estimate informally. I don't know that there was anything written, but they walked the place, looked at the equipment room and all that stuff. Their estimate at that time, I don't remember how many years ago, or I don't remember the name of the person, but it was about 500,000 at that point. The word that I've heard is everybody would guess that that number has increased because the pool has sat for a long time. So yeah, I do think you want a professional pool person to have a look at it and say, you know, you've got this problem, you got that problem. It's probably going to cost you about $1 million or whatever the number is. and get several of those estimates. And if they all come in about the same number, then we have some confidence in that number and we proceed from there.
Do you have a copy of this McAllister report, Commissioner?
You're welcome to send it to me. I have a lot of things on the pool. That name doesn't ring a bell, but so email it along or something.
I emailed it a while ago. I can resend.
Would you do that?
all
Yeah,
this.
thanks. We get a lot of information. Thanks.
Well, my point is that if you're saying it's only gotten worse, so I think you could decipher from this report that spending $500 or $1 million to try to refurbish what's up there now is not a wise choice.
Well, we'll make that decision when we get the information.
Yeah, and
we have the information. That's my point, is we have the information. Nothing has changed except the numbers get worse.
We're also, we were going to do two parallel paths, right? And I was hoping maybe land somewhere in the middle or like leaning one way or another. We're going to put this out for the public-private partnership. Who knows? Do we even know if there's somebody out there that wants to partner with us in a manner where we can answer all those questions and be satisfied? We don't even know that yet. So we're going to go the P3 route and find out if somebody can produce something that's viable that works for our community. Simultaneously, we're saying, okay, well, bare minimum, what does it take to get this thing up and running? And we're going to explore both paths at the same time and then come back and with all the information about what is out there in the public sector, or private sector, and what it costs, we can come back and have really meaty conversations. So I thought we were going to be exploring both of these. No, we're not?
No.
Not quite.
When did that change? Because that was the
That
last
wasn't-
thing.
that
that
wasn't-
you said.
That, just to set up the record, the consensus was to pursue the first step, which was issue an invitation for bid. Can this pool complex be reopened? What would it cost? The second one is come back and issue an RFP and go through a triple P process at the consensus of the commission, but we haven't gotten to that second step just yet.
Okay.
We're still trying to get off first base, honestly, and it's been a little bit of delayed, like I said a minute ago.
And I don't think there was a consensus to go out for another IFP because I was not in favor of us spending any more time.
Right.
Because I'm in the same light of Mr. Robinson. It's failed. It's going to cost us a lot more money. There's no reason for us, in my opinion, was to go down that rabbit hole again. We've been there. But again, now we're down a different rabbit hole of a presentation.
Maybe consensus is the wrong word, but there was a majority that night, about a month ago or so that.
And that was before we had the report, or before I had the report. When we were talking about the possibility of fixing this piece of stuff up there. And that was before I saw this.
Madam Mayor, if I may be my last comment
Please.
on this item. Since we're here and we haven't issued the invitation for bid, we can re-ask the question, and I'm gonna ask the question to the body. What is the direction that you would like for staff to pursue tomorrow? Is it issue the invitation for bid that would ask for bids, potentially? What would it cost to open what's there now? If not, then tell me not, and then go in a different direction. But just give me some direction, one way or another. I'm not even gonna ask for consensus.
Well, I'll ask for a vote. I mean, this.
I haven't looked at that, Mark. I have not looked.
Please do. And then.
I will certainly look at that.
Then do anything without, and at the next meeting, come back with your understanding of this report and what the future of trying to refurbish the existing pool.
I guess my question to Herman, and I'm not disagreeing with you, but I'm asking you a question, okay? You know, that's one, and I have not read that. There's always another opinion.
At least.
It won't cost us a dime to get that. If anybody does a bid, maybe nobody's interested.
This exists already.
But it's outdated. It's antiquated.
What's the harm in doing it?
But the fact is, it's only, you know that it's only going to be worse.
We don't know that, but that was their opinion. I haven't read it. So it's a little blind side. I haven't read it. Okay. I don't have it. I didn't read it. So I just don't know what the harm is in getting a fresh look at it.
It's a waste of time. That's the harm.
I would disagree, Commissioner, with all due respect, that it's a waste of time. If you have a bad roof and you need to do something and you're thinking, well, maybe I'll just knock the building down and build a whole new building because maybe that's going to be cheaper. You need to know, what is it going to cost to fix the roof that I've got? If it's minor, then I might not knock down the building. If it's major and it's a major chunk of the new building, then I probably would knock down the building. That's where we are. We have a very good at one time pool that Mr. Dorsey was active in getting us an almost Olympic sized pool that the community was very attached to for a long time. If that can be made functional at a reasonable price, and we have 3 bids that say, or estimates, I don't know, I'm not quite comfortable with the word bid, but estimates of what it would cost to do that are competent professional estimates, then we're in a position to decide, what do we want to do?
And I'll add to that, when I need a new roof, I get different bids. Sometimes they're not the same.
We're, you know, in all due respect, the roof is just part of a building that.
I'm using that as an example. I'm just saying, if major work needs to be done, I try to get different bids.
For a roof on a building that you know is not functional. So, you know, we're just, wasting time is a valid comment. We need to decide whether we're going to do a new pool and how we're going to do that, either with a triple P or use the funds that are out there that have been promised to us. We need to make a decision moving forward, not, I'm going to say it again, wasting our time.
Okay, and I was not part of that. A few of us were not part of that. I would just, you're focusing on the roof, I'm focusing on, what, and again, I've not read that study. Perhaps if we put this, I'm wasting time. I would hate to put it to the next agenda, get that report from that you're holding up and then start from that point.
It's more just about what services we need to offer to make it operational. This is not the same thing.
No.
I don't understand.
Isn't that more about the operational side?
Yeah, the plumbing, the leakage, the fact that it's a derelict property that needs to be resurrected.
Object a little bit to the derelict property description. It's not in function, but I hear you on the concern for time. I have had plenty of people in the community say, hey, when are you going to get the pool going? When are you going to get the pool going? I hear you on that, but they are most of what I hear, people who want to get the existing pool going. We have to balance as a commission, as the decision-making body, do we do it based on current, reputable, confiable, I think that's Spanish, but information that you can have confidence in. And I think 5-year-old is not helpful. It's a start, but we should just simply get this and let's do it expeditiously. I suspect that we could get professional commercial pool inspectors in, or not inspectors, but constructors in there. And in a week, they could all walk through it and do any tests they need to do and give us an estimate quite easily.
And by the time, if we approve this tonight.
We approved it a month ago.
Yeah, we did.
Juan needs direction. He needs a confirmation.
I agree, Chris.
I'm fine with it as long as we're not, like I said, but I don't want to talk about this in 6 weeks from now. So I'm with Herman. If it was up to me, I would just be saying, let's issue the PPP RFP and let's move forward. We've been talking about it. We've got drawings for the pool.
But we don't know at this point. Well,
We know that pool is an epic fail business model wise.
But I'm talking about.
I did not know that. I disagree with that.
Okay, and because of that, it's too big, it's antiquated. There's a million reasons why that pool should be redone. We have the opportunity to take that property and make it the diamond, not the the chocolate covered raisin of this city. Okay, I'm not in favor of putting a couple coats of paint on and refilling it and fixing the plumbing. This is an opportunity for us to have an entertainment venue for locals and tourists to contribute to our city. You don't even know there's a pool back there because there's a big brick wall. Right, well, is this pool people gonna say, well, we're gonna knock down the wall and put up a clear black wall too, a clear wall so we know it's back there? No, they're not. They're gonna say, here's the minimum you can spend to fix this pool.
All I'm gonna say is, if we go forward tonight within the next and we get something back within 6 weeks, we're not gonna, in the next 6 weeks, we've got the Gulfstream meeting, we've got the budget going on. We're not gonna be doing much else about the pool. You know, I don't think we're gonna have, because once we start with the pool process, it's a big public process that we're gonna have to have, right? So I don't think that that's gonna happen in the next 6 weeks anyway. So if we just let this go forward, it doesn't cost us anything.
Again, though, is this just gonna be, here's what it's gonna cost to fill the pool with water and make it the minimum? I don't want to do the minimum for our residents.
I don't want
And
to
wait it for 5 years plus for something better.
I hear you, Commissioner Malega, that you don't want to do the minimum. However, there's 5 of us that have to weigh in on it, and there's a lot of public input, and we need to know what are the costs to do different options. I've been through 2 proposed P3s with the pool, and there was huge outcry in the city, and in both cases, they did not work.
Because everybody said we're not selling the land, we're not giving it away. So
No.
let's not start that rhetoric.
I would like to move, I am one of the 3 original people the last time we had this conversation that wanted to stay on this track, and I want to say that I want to continue on this track and we continue on with our meeting. And if there's 2 other people that agree with me, to want to continue on this track, then we can move on and we'll have a lot more conversations about the pool to come.
We're talking about a
Nothing's
roof
gonna happen
that leaks.
in 6 weeks. Nothing's gonna happen in terms of the pool. We can start scheduling. I agree with you. I want that place.
That's just
to
what I'm
be-
saying, but these people aren't gonna give us that. They're just gonna give us the bare minimum, right?
And that pool may be able
We
to
have
be, there's a chance that even with that pool, that we can add amenities to it that would make it better. That's all I'm saying.
Leaks, the
let's-
plumbing is.
It's not costing us anything.
It's not costing us anything. So in 6 weeks, when we get this thing and it's an updated thing that says this, that will confirm what you're saying, Herman. In the
In
meantime,
our favor, Herman, it could say it's gonna cost you $2.7 million.
Report says it.
but in
We
6
have that
weeks, what are we gonna do
information.
about the pool anyway?
I'm sorry?
And you're talking about waste of time, but in 6 weeks, we're doing budget, we're doing Gulfstream, we're not gonna be doing anything about the pool. We can start having our public meetings.
I'm just asking to not be, to repeat something that we already have.
From one person.
It's not exactly.
It's a very different process to get bids specifically. What would it cost to get this thing going? I don't think we should be afraid of information. Maybe it comes back that all 3 people say, you know what? To get that pool going, it's going to cost you $6 million. We should do something totally different. And then we will be making that decision to go P3 or whatever it is we want to do and jewel of the county. And we say, you know what? But we need that information to make that decision.
And in the next 6 weeks, remember, we're not going to be doing anything about the pool anyway, so we might as well, at the end of 6 weeks, have some information. That's all.
Agreed.
Okay.
Let's have a,
As long as it's not
do I have a motion?
I have enough,
Oh.
Madam Mayor.
Okay, what?
We'll move forward with this.
Oh, okay. So we don't need to vote on that? We've already voted on it?
There was no action.
Oh, this was just, that's right.
We
This
got a
is
little off.
way off, okay. And I would love a copy of this, so we can give that back to him. Thank you. Okay, item B has already been done. That's the rescue plan for the folks. Item. Oh,
New business A.
new business A. All right, let me get to my spot here. Okay, new business A from staff. It's an authorized emergency pump parts and repair with PSI Technologies for Pump 101 at Regional Wastewater Master Station. Do we have a presentation? Hi, Brian.
Madam Mayor.
Who does the noise with the mic?
It's Juan.
It's when I catch their voice.
Oh.
Thank you. Hi.
Business A. Good evening, Mayor.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Water Utility Director. Item A is looking for your authorization to go ahead and procure components for one of the large pumps at the master pump station, which failed. We've got it in the shop, found out that an impeller and shaft had separated due to ragging up of the pump. So the component itself costs about $58,000. These are huge wastewater pumps, 450 horsepower, which pump all the way 15 miles up to the EPR facility. So we do need it repaired as soon as possible to make sure we've got all 4 pumps in working order for the hurricane season. So just looking for your authorization to go ahead with the procurement of the components. Our shop will put it back together and put it back in the very large crane.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, are there any public comment cards, Madam Clerk?
We actually do not have any public comment on any items left on the agenda.
Thank you.
Come on, public, get involved.
Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve?
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank by Herman Robinson. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Item B is the 11th addendum to the Law Enforcement Services Agreement. Is there a presentation? Seeing none, I ask, are there no public comment cards?
Madam Mayor, we do have Captain Bear, Major Brennan
Oh, is he
on
here?
the Zoom meeting.
Oh, okay. Hi, Captain Bear.
Hey, good evening, everybody. Good evening, Mayor. We have no presentation. Typically, you all might discuss and or then approve the contract for another year.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a motion?
Uh,
I have a comment.
Comments, if, and maybe others do, I don't know.
Go ahead, Mr. McBoy.
As I understand it, this is our one shot to have some influence on the contract. I understand, and there's 2 elements of that. One is the price, and one is the conduct of what we're contracting for, what we will receive in the way of services. I understand that the mayor and city manager have already negotiated to our favor on the price. Thank you for that. And I guess where I'm coming from a little bit is, while I think my experience campaigning and talking to lots of people around the community, all parts of the community, is that most people are pretty happy with the work of PBSO, but there are definitely areas of unhappiness, of feeling that, you know, maybe we could be doing more on some of the activities that happen in some of the alleyways, that there's some other things, that there's frustration that people in neighborhoods see obvious illegal things going on, report them, but it doesn't seem to change anything. And I guess I wonder what is the best mechanism for us as a community and as leaders of the community to try to slightly, you know, improve things to the benefit of the community, if we can do that. And I understand also that some of that can happen with informal discussions with all of us, either individually or jointly with PBSO, whichever way seems most appropriate. But perhaps some of it is something that one modifies the contract. And I don't know, you know, this just popped up on the agenda. So I don't know that we are in any position to make specific recommendations, but it seems unfortunate to move forward with simply approving, but not taking into account the concerns that have been raised in the community.
Thank you. Commissioner Stokes?
Yes, I'm just a little concerned that, you know, throughout our entire budget process, we're spending so many workshops really digging deep into all of our departments. And the sheriff department, who I consider on equal footing with, you know, everybody else that works for our city, they're just another department that provides a critical service for our city. We haven't looked at their budget at all. I see here in Article 7, I did ask for the contract that the city may, upon reasonable notice to the sheriff, examine the existing sheriff's records relating to the services provided. And so, I mean, we're being asked to commit an extra $500,000 this year and every year after, when we barely can find $100,000 in our budget, but there's no backup telling us why or where that's going from, or what our money is already, what the current contract is already covering, and what this is going to do, and how the money is being allocated with it. I think it's very unfortunate for us. I have a hard time wanting to vote on something with this amount of fiscal impact without seeing any data. And that's not the way we operate with the rest of the budget. So I don't know why this is getting a separate process.
This reflects the 2% raise, correct, Captain Bear and Juan?
Yes,
Yes,
I'd love to
Madam Mayor.
reply. I'd love to reply because I'm going to forget all the questions.
Sure.
I see Commissioner
Let's do
goes.
it that way.
Good evening, everyone. I'd also like to introduce my Major. Major Brandon is here tonight. Major, feel free to cut in if you need to. I can speak to a lot of it. Number one, this is how it's been done since the merger. Typically, the city manager and the mayor meet with us. We discuss the budget. As far as cost increase, just a couple. I have all good news pretty much. I know we're a big part of the budget, but as far as costs, Lake Worth Beach was still paying less in year 11 of the merger, and we're approaching year 13. It's hard to believe, but October 1st will be 13 years. But in year 11 of the merge, you guys were still paying less than you were in year 1. There were several years, 5, where there was 0 increase, even though the contract initially allowed for up to 7% a year, which would have doubled, as you know, in 7 years. So the sheriff, I'm not even sure how he's been benevolent enough to keep it to where he has. There's no way I would challenge you to find any city police departments that were paying less today than they were 11 years ago. And as you said, it was a 3% across the board this year. It was negotiated down to 2%. And that was a 0 increase last year. So with a 0 increase last year with COVID and everything, it ends up being almost like a 1 and 1. As far as crime, I mean, there's always more work to do, but this year we're off to a fantastic start. I don't want to jinx it, but as long as we make it through summer, which is traditionally more, where there's more crime, just a few of the numbers, robberies are down 47%, residential burglaries 17%, and auto burglaries 37%. And those are our 3 big ones. Now, we've had some violent crime, and it seems to be happening all over the county and the country. But otherwise, we're looking really good, especially in our areas we've traditionally struggled. And then lastly, here's some more really good news for Lake Worth Beach. While headquarters is being renovated for the next couple of years or so, our District 1, our headquarters district, is moving into the 1926 10th Avenue North building. So that's going to be, they have 140 something deputies. They'll be driving in and out of the city. Now, that's not their area, but it's going to bring them here every day and night for, lineups and different things where they would go. That's their headquarters for the next couple of years. So I'm happy to see the extra green and whites, driving through the city. They'll be eating lunch here, things like that. So it'll be a really nice extra boost for marked vehicles. But that's where we're at with that.
Let me ask a question, if I would. To just build on what Commissioner McVoy and Stokes have talked about. There are some very specific areas that we do have some specific problems in: the alleyways, the prostitutions, that sort of low-level street is what I'm thinking about. I don't know what Commissioner Stokes is thinking about, but do we have an opportunity? I guess my question is, do we have an opportunity to meet with you and on a personal, individual level, express our concerns and see if we can improve some of the responses? Am I off on that?
Yeah, I've met with several of you already, and of course, you can meet with me at any time. I don't want to pass the buck, but I do want to just, remind everyone, as I've reminded previous commissions, we're one part of the criminal justice system. My guys and girls make as many or more arrests than anybody. I challenge you, we'll go out in my truck and we'll stop whoever you want. And I bet you've been arrested probably double digits. Arresting is part of the solution. There's a whole system, and a lot of times they're back out before you even knew we locked them up.
I think presence. I'm talking more about with my. And this is, I'm not speaking for anybody but myself at this point. The presence. I mean, trust me, I understand about you arrest them, they get out. OR, they're gone. It's a revolving door. It's very frustrating. But Commissioner Stokes, what did you have in mind?
Mine's just more about information. So I know you did the report for us the last time, but it felt very surface level. And so I'm just curious about, of this $14 million that you get, how much is allocated towards, like we see, personnel, equipment, overtime for different stings? You know, and do we evaluate with data how effective these different things are? Because it's a lot of money, and I would just, we get pie graphs of what percent goes here, what percent's dedicated to there.
Does that not exist, Captain Bear? A
Yes,
break-
I'd be glad to meet with you about that. I don't have the line item budget in front of me. I can tell you that anecdotally, personnel costs are about 80–85% of the budget, as they are with pretty much all the budgets. Overtime is a good point. It's a huge savings. In my last year or two as a Lake Worth lieutenant, we were spending approximately $1 million on overtime to fill vacant staffing vacancies. Our budget's probably 20% of that for overtime, because if we have a vacancy, we just call, District 1 headquarters or somewhere, and we can fill it that way. Whereas, the city of West Palm Beach can't call Riviera Beach and say, hey, we had 2 people calling sick tonight. Can you send me 2 of your officers? It doesn't work that way. So, our overtime budget is nowhere near what it was, pre-merger. That's one of the areas that, PBSO is of a great service.
Okay, and I think I would love an opportunity for us to get back to and talk publicly or privately at one-on-one about the kinds of data that we like to see. Also, just what percent of calls are your guys handling? Like, what percent of calls about, people who are homeless, or how much of the time from your deputies are spent on this kind of case versus this kind of case versus that kind of case?
That's in your semi-annual, a lot of that. Some of that data our systems aren't able to track, but some of it we are. You get those semi-annual reports. They're about 80 pages twice a year. I just dropped one off right after the election to the city manager. That a lot of that info is in there. I can tell you again anecdotally that we spend a huge amount of our time on non-traditional law enforcement activities, and it grows each year. Things that aren't necessarily a crime or a traffic issue. It's your social service type issues such as homelessness, drug addiction, things like that. They do take a lot of our time, and that's why when you don't always see the presence you would like, they're out there, but a lot of times they're running call to call all day and night. 4th of July, one of you asked me about 4th of July, and just on the night of 4th of July, we ran 105 calls. That's a lot of calls.
And how many deputies for those calls?
We put a lot of deputies out in 7 square miles. Proportionally, we're better staffed than a lot of the other districts, especially the unincorporated areas, but we're also very busy. So when they aren't on calls, we've been emphasizing the traditional community policing, and we've getting a lot of good comments from citizens and staff about what they're seeing. But we operate like an emergency room, and when the heart attacks come in, we've got to go to those over the other things that might have been sitting for a little while.
Thank you. Commissioner Malega?
First of all, I love PBSO. I'm a big fan of theirs. They haven't had a raise in, I think, 2 years. Major Brandon is actually on a call with me every Wednesday night as part of a community dialogue to change initiative. And he and I have been, first of all, I want to say that I appreciate his honesty on this community dialogue change, because he is no holds barred, and he's giving the information that we want to hear and giving us solutions. One of the things he recommends with social services is call the fire department. Don't call the police. If you have a situation where somebody needs medical attention, it should be the fire department showing up. But secondly, one of the things that I brought up to them is that, I've been very unhappy with the fact that when a crime happens or an accident, that there's remnants left behind. And I want to elevate what our city looks like and how we have community pride. And the major said to me, you don't need to change the contract. You said it, and I'm going to make sure it's implemented now. So the major and Juan and Captain Bear are working on policy changes to make sure that when there's an accident, there's not crime scene tape left, there's not blood at the scene, there's not broken car parts anymore. So I'm just thankful, and I'm happy that my communication with PBSO has been positive, and any changes or anything that I've requested, I've gotten back from them.
Now, is it a private call between you and?
No, there's 14 of us on this community dialogue change that was invitational from people within the cities. There's one in Riviera Beach, one in West Palm Beach, one in Lake Worth Beach. So there's a couple different ones that are happening. And it's I think it's an 8-week process. And every Wednesday night, we're on this Zoom together for 2 hours talking about everything from systemic racism to how we can, how can we become a better community? How can the police become better community partners, and the effective changes that we can make from inside help PBSO be better at what they do.
I hadn't heard about that. I think that sounds like a good program. Was that the PBSO initiated it?
It's part of the DOJ grant that just put
Oh, okay.
on from the one up from the actual, remember we had the community meeting?
Yep.
It kind of evolved from that.
Great. It's wonderful. Thank you. Commissioner Robinson, would you like on?
I just want to say that we are blessed to have PBSO with the demographics in our city. I think it's outstanding, the crime level that we have because of PBSO involvement in the community. And some of the concerns for the budget probably are on the county level in terms of social services that Captain Bear isn't going to address, but could be addressed at the sheriff's level, not at the local level. So I want to celebrate the success of PBSO.
Yeah.
The court system, not so much.
Well,
I make a motion to approve.
but do I have a second?
Second.
By Commissioner Robinson, I also put in, I'm a big fan of PBSO as well. I have family that are riding the rails right now. And do we have a vote? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much, Captain Bear. And thank all the guys and women out there that keep us safe. Okay, next we have item C, Resolution 47, 2021, Justice Assistance Grant Application. Do we have a presentation?
Yes, we do, Madam Mayor.
Hi.
Members of
What, you've been waiting all night for?
Jerry Kelly, grant analyst. We're here to provide a very brief overview of the JAG program. This is an entitlement formula grant that the city receives annually. It's the Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Assistance Grant, known by its acronym JAG. It's the leading source of formula-based federal justice funding to eligible state and local jurisdictions. The JAG program provides states, tribes, and local governments with critical funding necessary to support a range of program areas. Eligible activities include law enforcement, prosecution, indigent defense, courts, crime prevention and education, corrections and community corrections, drug treatment and enforcement, planning, evaluation, technology improvement, and crime victim and witness initiatives and mental health programs and related law enforcement and correction programs, including behavioral programs and crisis intervention teams. The funding amount that we've been told by the Bureau of Justice Assistance for 2021 JAG award is $34,606. The city can submit only one application for the total amount. However, the proposed activity can be changed post-award during the life of the grant period of fiscal 2021 to 2025 by submission of a change of scope grant award modification, also known as a GAM. The current year's fund, the fiscal year 2020-2024, is $31,206. These funds are using these funds to maintain the city's recreation meter. However, this position is currently vacant. And we are proposing a new position to add a literacy component to crime prevention and educational programs. The recommendation for the 2021-2025 JAG award is the establishment of the out-of-school programs coordinator position to provide general management, coordination, and oversight of the city's literacy, prevention, and education programs to be conducted at the city's public library. This funding is provided under this fiscal year 2021-2025 JAG award. And if it's combined with the balance of the fiscal year 2020-2024 JAG award, we can include this to continue to fund the program, which will keep this program active through fiscal year 2024. The city's out-of-school prevention and education programs have been conducted since fiscal year 2009. They've been highly effective in reducing the incidence of youth delinquency, increased school attendance, and improved academic performance among the participating youth, which are aged 10 to 17. We have discussed this particular program with our policy advisor at DJA, and she was very excited about this particular program. She said she's looking forward to the city conducting it.
So this goes directly to a program, a literacy program at a library.
That's correct. In addition to the crime prevention and the other educational activities. Some of the partners that are being proposed include a consortium of library partners that include For the Children, Bridges, Head Start, Healthier Lake Worth Beach, the Literacy Coalition, Adopt a Family, Farm Workers Council, PDSO, and the Early Learning Coalition of Palm Beach County.
Thank you. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner McBoy. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Aye.
Next up-
Thank you.
Next up, we have Resolution 48, 2021. Do we have a presentation on that as well?
No presentation.
No present. Okay. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
By Commissioner Robinson, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Which brings us to item E, which is water utilities. Hello again, Mr. Shields.
We love applying for money.
I love
Free money.
Give us that money. Thank you, Jerry.
Similar situation on this item. This is an authorization to proceed with a grant application with Jerry Kelly's help to a Florida DEP. Florida DEP recently announced that they were offering resiliency type grants, and these are for implementation of actual construction projects ready to go. So we have one at Eden Place, 16th Avenue North of the East End, but we do have a chronic flooding situation. If we're successful in obtaining this grant and matching it with our own funds that are currently available, we'll proceed with the construction and reduce that flooding and reduce the severity of flooding by adding in the new seawall and tide valve and upsizing the pipe. So with that, we're just looking for your approval to move ahead with the grant application.
Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Motion.
Motion by Commissioner Robinson, second by Commissioner McBoy. How's that?
There you go.
All in favor?
Aye.
Yep.
Thank you very much. Okay. We are now on F, which is the Resilient Florida Grant Program proposal for South Palm Park.
Very similar.
Hello, Mr. Shields. Welcome back.
Type project. This one is in South Palm Park at 18th Avenue South, very last street in the city and the lowest point of the city.
Very vulnerable.
People will be very happy if we approve this.
Those residents will be very happy to see this project move forward. Again, similar situation, stormwater utility capital, very limited budget, so we rely on.
Motion to
grants.
approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. You've done well, Mr. Shields. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for finding money to
Yeah,
fund these capital improvements.
the more the better. Okay, so that was F. So we're back to item G. We made item G the towing contract, and I don't want to, you know, this is apparently a pretty controversial thing. I really want to, Juan, I'm looking at you, sir. We are hearing something, well, ma'am, you've, thank you.
Madam Mayor, let me try to reset the deck.
Why don't you do that?
And let me just say that it's rare that we pull items right at the vote to accept the consent, usually reordering and whatnot.
And we
And
understand.
it's important because staff that are involved in items are hanging around, and when there isn't a reorder, they kind of scatter and go home. And we've been here all day. Nonetheless, with the change, we had to get our attorney, Chrissy Gatto, who's online now, Matt Latino, who's our purchasing manager,
Okay.
Jamie Brown, our public works director, Felipe LaFosse, our assistant public works director, and Glenn Torcida, our other city attorney, are all now on the meeting. To
Thank
help
you.
answer any questions
Welcome to the party.
Really?
have related to this bid, the award that was brought forward. And again, when these come forward, the ultimate decision lies with the board to accept the recommendation the staff has brought forward. Okay, but obviously there's some questions about process, notices, I want to try to keep the conversation specific to the item and
Right.
not about the procurement or potential changes to that, because that's coming to you at a future meeting.
Absolutely.
And so with that being said, I can open the floor up either to two questions to staff and our attorneys, or we can have Christy, who's on, thank you for joining us, to kind of give a brief overview, however you would like, Madam Mayor. Is that your?
Okay. Christy, have you had an opportunity to look at the, apparently there have been, we've all, I think some of us have got emails in advance of this meeting. Have you had an opportunity to review the process that went into this award?
Yes, Madam Mayor. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, and now we can see you.
Okay, great. Just to give you guys some background, since we've been involved with the city since 2013, for city tows that PBSO orders within the city, PBSO used a rotational list, and that's gone on since about 2013. In 2016, the city issued a contract with Priority Towing for priority towing on a non-exclusive basis to assist the city's code enforcement division to do inoperable vehicle tows. In 2020, Valentina and I received an email that there was an issue with the PBSO rotation and that they had provided all of those tows to Priority. So Valentina and I looked into it. We talked with Felipe. Captain Bear got involved, and what we found out is there was some miscommunication perhaps within PBSO dispatch, because some other cities, I know Green Acres and Wellington, had moved to a single towing contract. And so they thought that Lake Worth Beach had also done that and didn't realize that we were still on a rotational basis. But within 15 to 20 days, we figured this all out. Captain Baird reinstituted the rotational towing through PBSO, and that is what's gone on. July 31st, I had a conversation with an attorney that represented one of the towing companies, Michael Weiner, and I explained to him that there was a mix-up, the rotation is back in place, but that the city would be issuing an RFP to go out for a new towing contract. And I went back and looked at my email after the comments this evening, and I did advise Mr. Weiner that his clients should register with the city so that they're certain to get the RFP when it's issued, because I advised him that neither the city nor PBSO could guarantee that we would reach out to all of the towing companies to advise them of any changes in our process. So Valentina then worked with Felipe and Parking on developing the RFP that was issued earlier this year to get a towing contract in place. Initially, that RFP went out with the intent to award to a single towing company, as we saw that seemed to be beneficial to other cities in terms of having one point of contact for all the city tows, and also the city receiving some revenue in return on those city-directed tows that come through PBSO. We then decided that perhaps before we got the responses that we might want to award to more than one, so we issued an addendum to allow the city the opportunity to award to more than one towing company, depending on what the responses were. A selection committee was organized involving 3 city employees that are involved in towing. They reviewed, we received 5 responses to that RFP. They reviewed all of the responses in a public meeting and ranked them. And Priority Towing received the highest ranking based on different criteria within the RFP. So the recommendation to you tonight is based on that selections committee's, their review of all the responses to the RFP and which company, which is Priority Towing, that they felt had the strongest response and met the best interest of the city under the criteria in the RFP.
Let me just ask a question. Does someone, in order to be, well, you mentioned registering as a unit, as an entity, is that something that, tell me about that.
That Valentina can speak to that more, but we use the bid and tenders website to do our procurement process. that alleviates some of the paperwork and issues with the old hard copy procurement. But if you register with bid and tenders, then you're assured to receive all of the RFPs and invitations to bid that the cities issue.
Okay, so otherwise you're hoping that the city makes a phone call and invites you specifically to bid on a project?
Correct. And that was my advice to their attorney back in July of 2020, that we don't take on that burden just because then we would have a responsibility to every towing company, perhaps Palm Beach County and beyond, to let them know, oh, we're letting out this type of contract. So I have that in an email to their attorney back in 2020 to make sure that they were watching out for that RFP to come out.
And thank you for that explanation, Christy. It's very clear and very helpful. Can either you or Valentina, Tina or Tino, I apologize, I didn't catch which. Can they clarify your last comment? In general, when we issue an RFP, we don't, let's say we need an RFP for, I'm on roofs tonight, so we don't look around for all the roofing contractors and call them. We put it on bids and vendors, and it's the responsibility of roofing companies, if they're interested, to have a look from time to time. Is that standard procedure?
Yes.
Yes, and I can speak to that, Commissioner, a little bit more in detail. Actually, the city advertises every single public solicitation in a Palm Beach Post. We send a public notice so that all of the local potential bidder can also see it. We also have a little click of the button for the business opportunities on our website, on the city's website, where the bidders can go in, and when they click there, they're automatically taken to the bids and tenders, and they can see all of the available bids. This particular tender was out on the street for 5 weeks, and I think that companies had plenty of opportunities to participate.
Thank you. And it was an administrative decision to not rotate, to go with one? It was a staff decision?
Yes, Madam Mayor.
Okay. Thank you all. That's very helpful. Are there any other questions from the commission?
There was some correspondence from the internal auditor about the committee itself, improvements to be made there.
For in the future?
Yeah, and I can speak to those real briefly. And Will Brown, our internal auditor, we've also spoken. I know Will's met with Valentina as well, right, Valentina? In general, his recommendation is that in the future, when we have these RFPs and we have these evaluation committees, to take advantage of asking for presentations to be done by the vendors to the evaluation committee. That's always been in place. Looks like, based on him evaluating, that's not always used, and it can be seen as advantageous to the evaluation committee to have live presentations. In my previous positions in the city, I've been involved in a lot of evaluation committees. I'm not as a city manager anymore. We kind of play outside the ball field there. There's been times when we've had presentations, there's been times when we haven't. It kind of varies from the bid per se, but we will review those recommendations with our purchasing team and see where we can make improvements, along with the other improvements that have been talked about tonight when it comes to the topics of preference.
Thank you. Commissioner Maliga?
I'm not going to bring up preference or procurement, but I am going to state that when I did pull these ratings, if you will, and the price sheets, that priority towing was considerably higher in a lot of categories. And I questioned that. And it all came down to, well, we have this committee who goes through and critiques them. But to me, it always comes down to dollars. So I did question that. I questioned Valentina. And again, it's back to this 3 or 5 people, however many we have. And I'm not a big fan of the way that it's being done, because to me, it does come down to dollars and cents, especially when it's the city paying for our cars to be jumped versus not paying for them, or our cars to have a flat tire fixed at $75 versus $0.
Yeah.
So there's a big discrepancy on the dollar figures. And I am going to go on record to say that when I looked at what priority is, even though they got the highest grading, that they also have the highest pricing in a lot of the categories. So I'm putting that out there. It's public record, but it is extremely higher in some of the categories.
Commissioner So
I have a question about the matrix that's just used. Is that a standard one that we pulled from the industry that we use to create the categories and the weight of each category, or is that something we came up with internally?
I think Valentina can speak to that.
Yes, I can answer that question, Madam Commissioner. When we set up a committee of assembling every solicitation, usually department representative, myself, we sit down and look at the scope of work, and then we develop the qualification criteria. It's usually a combine of the responsiveness, cost effectiveness, experience and qualifications, similar projects with the government entities, and other required criteria based on the actual scope of the services. And then we assign a number of points, and that's how it's basically done.
Thank you. So when I looked at this, because after getting the email, I pulled it up as well to see what's going on with the scoring. Something that it stood out to me, it seemed like if you'd done business with the city before, it's weighed very heavily in two categories. In this example, they got a lot of points because they've done business with us before.
No.
Then they got a lot of points because they got letters of references from the people in this city they did business with before. So they were getting like double the amount of, so just as a math person looking at the weight of each category, and I know we're going to talk about not only, minority owned, if that's legal, but, not wanting to create a situation where you have a monopoly or it's hard for small local upstarts coming in and having a chance.
Right.
So I think we have a lot to dig into with this, and it's not just necessarily about, minority owned. It's a deeper issue than this. So I just want to make sure that we are setting up the most fair process. But I don't, at this point, know. It sounds like the matrix is kind of figured out.
It's weighted heavily on if you've done business and you've had municipality. And I also question why the letters of recommendation were in there from somebody who was now doing some of the judging and the evaluations. So I think that just in general, that's why procurement policy, something that I brought up, not just minority, but the process in which, how do we get to here?
And we do have findings from our internal auditors, so I think.
And Madam Mayor, if I may speak to the letter that was included in the response, there was a letter of recommendation from Felipe LaFaso, who did serve on the selection committee. That letter was done in 2018, and it was for the vendor to reference for other municipalities looking for towing contractors. This towing contractor stuck it in his in Priority Towing's response to the RFP, but it was something done 3 years ago. And we all knew going into this that we had experience with Priority, and obviously for any incumbent, it's good or bad. And as an incumbent, if you've done a good job for a city, then yeah, you may have, some advantage in an RFP process. But if also it could be bad news if you've been the incumbent and you've not done such a great job. So it can be a double-edged sword. But we do look at all experience. And I think some of the downgrading is if you don't have that municipal experience in towing or with the garage or a specific scope of services where experience really does impact those scores. And I also believe in the cost of this RFP, one factor was the return in cost to the city for the tows. And I believe the overall value to the city for Priority Towing's response was a higher return to the city, even considering what the city would have to spend for services that other towing companies weren't going to charge for.
Return money to the city?
Correct.
Commissioner Roberts?
There were ones that were identical because Valentina and I compared them, and that number was the same. But that's when this scoring system comes into play. It goes above and beyond it. So it's really a combination of the scoring system, the pricing, all of it together is how they come up with it. And like Christy said to me earlier, even if we took some of these factors out, the people in question would have scored 5th out of 5. in the scoring system that's there. So they weren't, it wasn't like they were second runner up.
Priority. Oh, no, who?
Yes, Miss Jennifer.
Oh, okay. Commissioner Robinson?
I like the idea of rotating to spread the business around. I question the efficiency of the price competitiveness in a rotation policy, and also the efficiency of just using one person. But if it was up, I would rather see a rotational policy than if it's not any less efficient and any more expensive.
So like the PBSO ones?
Yes.
I mean, I think if it's like a public lot, it makes sense that there's one sign there. So if you parked your car there and you're like, oh man, I got towed, that you see who to call.
Better call Kaufman's
That
or
makes sense.
whoever, yeah.
But then for some of the other ones, I can see why you might have a bucket where
And
it's
code.
single and then a bucket where it's.
And code. PBSO and code, or there, if that's.
Well, parking lots have the sign,
Yeah.
the name, but okay, there's a unusable car on the street that has to be towed. That's what we're talking about here, that sort of thing. Well, I mean, we're kind of in between a rock and a hard place on some levels. We're not happy with the process, I don't think.
No.
The process has completed.
Could I comment one brief thing on the process?
Sure.
As somebody who's been involved on the other side of bidding to municipalities on projects, I hear the concern that, oh my goodness, they put in a letter of recommendation by somebody who was on the committee. And I would just point out that although that sounds like it could be, dubious or something, it's very common that and the explanation I think that Christie provided, that Priority is a towing company. They're going to apply for bids to other places. It's very common. You go back to people that you've had a contract with before and say, hey, who was the project manager? Could you write us a letter of recommendation? We're applying to Boca or wherever. And it's very common that the person who was the project manager writes one. They may say, no, I don't want to because they weren't very good. And they choose to not honor it, not do that. But that's a common practice. It's not dubious. And that it happens to be the same person that's on the committee, again, sounds like it could be a conflict of interest, but in fact, we're a small city, so we don't have a huge number of people. The project manager for something like that is likely to be the person to be the review committee or one of the members of the review committee. So I would just say that things that might look a little bit odd are in fact very typical municipal outside bid processes, to my experience.
I just want to add, my thing was about the two categories. So if you're already getting credit for having done work in our city, and then there's another category for letters of references, those should come from a different city. Because it's almost like you're getting double points for the same thing. That was what I looked at and saw.
I would agree with
questionable.
that the letter should be outside references.
Right. I have a question. Is this an exclusive contract, or could we come out next year with an RFP for other companies?
Your Honor, the way this was advertised, it was
Right, that's my
advertised that it could have a multiple award. It was advertised as a 3-year plus 2 1-year options. So if the City Commission has concerns about the process, the options tonight would be that we can cancel this RFP, redevelop the process, and put it back out on the streets. Obviously, you can go with the recommendation from the selection committee, or alternatively, if you wanted to serve as the selection committee, that would be the alternative for y'all to then review each of the proposals that came in and then do your own scoring. So if the concerns about the process would be to redo some of the criteria, we could certainly work on that and do that. But normally once we advertise the RFP, we like to stick to what's been advertised in the RFP in terms of the term of the contract.
And the RFP was a 3-year,
It was 3 years plus 2 one-year options.
but could be awarded to multiple parties.
Could be more.
It could be, and if we did that, then we would have to go back to the selection committee, either as the commission or this selection committee, and ask them to relook at it as a rotational basis award.
Or could we come back next year with a new RFP, adding a couple?
Right, like they get the contract for now,
Right.
but then they understand that a year from now, they might have a little, you know, they might have to share the work. Just as they understood
The
when they
contract
initially
is 3
applied.
years.
What,
Yes,
Chris?
3 years for now.
Right, but what we're saying, I think what we're saying is
The RFP said it could be multiple.
it could be
They would get the
multiple.
3-year
Okay, so we
contract.
could approve this, and tell me if I'm wrong. We could approve this 3-year contract, but next year we could do another, or whenever, we could do another RFP with it. Once we
Presentations.
change the scoring system, keep this in effect, but then add a couple of the, put it out again for other bids.
And let
But-
me just say too, that it also falls on the fault of the vendors.
Yeah, I'm gonna
This-
say
this
that.
Bid and vendor company, they have to be held
I
accountable.
don't know why you don't
And
know
there,
about it.
there,
because there's a way to know.
we do have a policy that Valentina told me that you have the opportunity to pay $1,000 and fight the RFP award.
Mhm.
And that policy, that time lapse, I think it's 30 days or something, right?
Yeah, as I said earlier, none of them filed the bid protest, so.
I'm
it's
sorry?
unusual to not file the bid protest and still essentially be protesting. the
Yeah.
commission.
Because there's $1,000 fee to it. There's $1,000 cost, isn't there?
For a bid protest.
Yes.
Right, but if you believe you have a valid protest, you file that. But
Right.
again, as Christie said, you have a couple of different options tonight.
Yeah, and I'm uncomfortable with the vendor, with all due respect, putting it on the city to not have, you didn't call us and tell us about it. There are ways that people found out about this. If you register with this group, you get notified of everything.
We did.
And you didn't,
They didn't notify us, that's what I'm telling you.
But that doesn't fall on
No,
ours.
that doesn't fall on the
Right,
city. I'm
right.
not
Okay,
saying that, I'm saying we weren't notified, but.
I like your idea, Mayor. I'm feeling comfortable with that because it also gives us time to change the scoring system, look at the procurement. And maybe, 8 months, 10 months, a year from now, come out and say, you know what? We fine tune it.
and keep
But,
this,
but
Because
we
we still
need
need towing right now.
what?
We still need towing right
Yeah,
now.
yeah, yeah.
to
Madam
go forward with that, we need clarification from Christie. If the RFP says 3 years, are we allowed to change that right now?
No, I'm not suggesting that we change it. I'm suggesting that this go forward for the 3 years, but then we open it up, do another RFP for other people to join in. Juan, please, Mr. Manager.
Commissioner McBoy essentially asked a question that I was gonna ask a Madam
Okay.
Attorney. Would it be, this is definitely atypical, to issue an
Isn't that our
award for a
city, though?
3-year contract with 2 one-year renewals, but then let's say in end of FY 22, at the wish of the commission to, after we go through some procurement revisions, issue another RFP for a rotating towing contract that's essentially layered over an existing 3-year contract with 2 one-year renewals.
Yeah, that's
Sounds-
weird.
Found some conflicts in
Yeah.
there, but I'm not an attorney, just play it on TV.
Your Honor, what I would recommend is if the commission is inclined to just go with, say, a one-year contract, we can reach out to Priority Towing tomorrow morning and find out if they're agreeable to a one-year term, and allow maybe perhaps extensions within that, and just leave it at that, and then go forward with a new RFP to be awarded, at the time that 1 year ends. I would imagine that Priority Towing is going to be agreeable to at least having a 1-year agreement, and then do the RFP process, because it would be a little weird to have a 3-year agreement with Priority. And
Yeah.
then as
Yeah.
Trying to be creative here. Yeah.
Mr. Ruiz said, to layer something on. So I think, if the commission is inclined to either cancel the whole thing and go back out, or to give Priority 1 year while we work on some new criteria for an RFP to follow on, I think Priority would be more acceptable to that. And then folks know that there will be another opportunity in about a year's time to submit a new proposal.
Are all of you registered?
Yes, yes.
You are, okay. And none of you heard about it?
No, I feel I.
Oh, you did, yeah, okay.
I said we would do things
Um,
for 0 that he said he'd do for 75.
Okay,
Yeah,
all right,
he's
got it. Juan, how do you feel about that?
I'm agnostic to it.
He's, I don't care what you
I feel
do.
good about it.
Yeah.
The 1 year.
The 1 year.
I,
We will follow the direction of the commission.
okay, what do you feel like?
I'm, again, like I said, I looked up this.
No, we're talking about, I understand the, I
I'm
have, but
100%,
we're asking now, what
yes,
about a
I'm on
year?
board. 1 year sounds good to me.
Let's see, Christie, if you could try that. I
Yes,
think that's a good.
absolutely.
And I would call your company and say, what the heck, why did I get, I mean, it's not our fault that you didn't get.
No, I understand.
Well, then we're gonna probably approve the contract. Because you did not approve, you obviously talked to each other. You may not have known about the bid, but you knew something was going on and there was no bid contest. So I have, well, okay, but, so I think that I would, so what would our motion be? Our motion would be to,
Madam Mayor, I
yes,
think the motion would be to approve a 1-year contract. We will negotiate good faith with priority from a 3-year to 1 year.
Mhm.
No guarantee.
So that's it. Or Madam Mayor, you want to correct that? And I'll just stop playing attorney again.
you don't want to play attorney,
No.
it's not.
Sure you do.
Yeah, please, yeah. It's much easier to play attorney than be attorney.
I'll make a motion to approve a 1 year, renegotiate it with priority on this, and then for us to revisit it a year from now.
Second.
Okay, second by Commissioner McFoy, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay, thank you very much. Oh.
Thank you.
Attorney.
Thank you, Juan.
City Attorney,
Thank
report. Thank you for hanging in there, Christie and Valentina.
Absolutely.
Just to thank Christie for getting back on.
Yeah, thank you, guys.
Wanted to report. Thank you, Christie.
Thank you.
Christie, do you have your pajamas on underneath there?
No.
What did you say?
She's got her jammies on
Oh,
underneath.
I know, right. She's really good up to her waist. City manager.
Thank
report.
you. Have a good night.
Thank you, you too.
Thank you. Madam Mayor, I did want to bring up one quick question is, can we revisit, I know, I think Commissioner Malia brought this up before. And I'm glad Glenn is here about reordering the structure of the actual agenda.
We've talked
New
about that.
Business
Mhm.
to the
The new
front end,
business.
at least the front end, tonight was a perfect example.
Exactly.
We have a lot of dedicated staff that have been here for hours. And it changes from agenda to
Mm-hmm.
agenda. Sometimes we have a lot of new business, sometimes we don't, sometimes like presentation. I think
God bless you.
you guys are seeing the wear
Thank you.
on staff. And as far as I'm concerned, I'll be careful with what I'm gonna say, but when it comes to development world, public hearings,
Agree.
We can wait.
consultants,
Agree.
they
We can
can
wait.
wait their turn.
I-
No, I agree.
Thank you for bringing that back
Staff
up.
and Get them in and out in a reasonable amount.
I've been asked the same thing about presentations. If someone wants, I mean, I've been asked, could you set presentations to a time certain? And I don't think that's possible. But so our reordering would be, we would go from presentations to new business.
Well, we probably still do consent.
Well, I want to ask Glenn and chime in, and we don't have to solve it tonight. And Glenn, I want to make sure, I'm assuming we can change our ordinance.
Rules.
Yeah.
We can change the
Or
rules.
resident.
That's always been the dilemma. How do you get the new business taken care of in a timely way when people are still fresh?
Right.
Staff is still here, but also accommodate the public and the people that are making presentations. As Mayor said, one theory is you do the new business till a time certain, 8 o'clock or 8:30, and then you put the presentations on. One of those 50-50.
So those people have to wait, the Girl Scouts have
Well,
to
at least
wait.
They won't come till then, right? If I know.
Oh,
like
right.
Takesha Miles, for example,
Yeah.
if Takesha knew that her presentation was at 8, she'd have her dinner or whatever she does, and then she'd come at 8.
Right, I agree with you.
Yeah.
Where tonight, she was lucky because she got in and out, otherwise she would have been doing the presentation at 6.
Yeah, and then
the
coming back at 8:30.
Business, 7:30, 8 o'clock.
No, I think it's a good idea. I think we need to be as careful as we can with time, other people's time. We're here, it doesn't matter for us.
And if it's okay with the board, what I'll do is go back and take it under advisement with Christie, and we'll work with Glenn and come up with an idea. And I'll present it to you guys in our one-on-one. We'll bring it forward as an item if there's consensus to bring it forward. If not, we'll leave it alone
Yeah,
and just deal with what we deal with.
yeah.
But
I think the time certain on the presentation is not a bad
I
idea.
mean, I also think that too, what we're talking about is that commission liaison reports and comments could be at the end with attorneys and managers.
Absolutely.
And to me, approval of minutes should be like right after the Pledge of Allegiance, approve the minutes and move forward.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
or couldn't, I mean, it seems like approval of minutes is, what if we stuck that at the end? I mean, usually it's quick, but,
Right.
and what if we put the consent agenda at the end?
At the end and put new business in front of
Yeah.
it.
No, I
Yeah.
agree. It's not
And-
very efficient the way it is now.
The only thing
I kind of agree with the thought on the liaison reports. The only possible caution on putting those at the end is if we think that that's something that the public needs to hear, wants to hear, maybe there's an argument for being earlier if people watch it live. But if most people watch the commission meeting recorded later on at 1.5 speed, which is a pretty smart idea, then it
Can I
really
do
does.
that?
Can we
Many people think I'd be great at 1.5 speed, even 2.
We'd love it.
So yeah, I think that that's a great idea. And
Yeah.
I mean, it's only taken
No, I
160
think,
days to
I
get.
think we have to pay a little more.
We're getting there.
Is there any way to determine, and this might be an impossible question, when a staff, like tonight, William Waters sat here for 2 hours for second readings of things that we'd already talked about the previous meeting and we're all okay with. So could he zoom in? I mean, it's kind of hard to look ahead of time and say, when do you zoom, when do you not zoom, when is it absolutely necessary versus not?
Yes, he could have zoomed, but my direction, trying to measure and try to evaluate what's going on with COVID was that I wanted, and again, this was a request of the body prior, was to have staff be in person for presentations. As I watch and figure out how to lead the organization through the rise in COVID numbers, you may see adjustments where I'm now asking staff to present from Zoom. So, and again, staff present because of at my direction.
But I agree. I mean, it's a second reading.
The second readings are not.
Unless there's a change in what they have to present to us to think.
I think the second
We're
readings.
talking about changing something with the Historic Preservation Board.
Right.
Okay, this seems like something that would be nice to be able to have some
Right.
But I think we are that with Christie's presentation, which was an unplanned presentation on the towing thing right at the end, to me, it seemed like it worked fine by Zoom.
Right.
Yeah, well, thank
I'm
goodness we had Zoom,
You're never coming back.
I wanted, but I deferred to the request.
Feel better, Chris.
Yeah, we hope you continue to amend. No, I think we need to do it. It's not very efficient the way it's working.
I'll take it under, I'll take it all under advisement, and then Commissioner Soap's comments, I'll also look at when there's quick items that appear to be quick and there's, and I can kind of gauge based on our conversations internally, I can make the accommodations, especially right now with what's going on for staff, just to be able to zoom in. We've been able to work with our clerk for 3 weeks from Zoom. We spent 18 months running meetings from Zoom. We have a template that works. And so I'll take all of that into consideration and then I'll bring forward, clean up.
Was there any interest in an agenda review before as we set the agenda and reorganize all about?
Motion to adjourn.
Wait, what were you saying?
How would that work,
Question
Carmen?
is, Sarah,
I'm going to the bathroom.
excuse me.
I'm going to the bathroom.
The question was brought up before about agenda review.
As another meeting, as a public meeting.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's all. I just asked if there was any comment.
What is that? Can you describe that to me?
Yeah, it's such, go ahead, you want me to?
Go ahead.
Essentially, West Palm's a perfect example. They will meet in the morning on a certain date and time, or every month, they have pre-agenda set meetings.
Right.
So it's kind of a pre-commission.
A preview, yeah.
There's no motion taken, but it's an opportunity to talk about, bring forward items. Like right now, we say, bring forward your discussion item, get consensus, and whatnot. A lot of that stuff could happen in a pre-agenda set meeting where, well, we don't want to talk about this. We don't have consensus, so it never makes it to the official meeting. The complexity of it is trying to
Scheduling is
and find the time for 5 of you with different times and different schedules and different,
I'm all for it. If we could schedule it, I think it'd be a great idea.
And so then consequently, upcoming meetings is on the agenda here.
Right.
And I'm going to question August 17th. We're having a conversation about a city manager on the 26th or 24th. when are we going to have that? When we have a regular meeting on the 17th? We've already had correspondence with the consultant. Why are we not having a conversation on the 17th?
It's hard for me to tell what we're doing because there's no draft agenda here.
Right.
So
And remember, we're still adjusting to the additional timeline where we've been issuing these books.
Right.
yeah,
Far in advance. Now, I think the city manager dates that were initially scheduled for the end of August, the executive related dates have now been canceled, I think, because I saw them drop off a calendar.
Yeah, these dates don't even work into the
Remember,
16th.
this was posted. this
Right,
agenda
a
was
while back.
issued
Yep.
Days ago. So, and also to take under consideration is if we do in a pre-agenda set meeting, how does that fit in the overall timeline to kind of juggle the creation of this with extra time given, the multitude of meetings that we have and workshops.
Right.
It becomes increasingly difficult, but I will have a conversation with staff and just look at the logistics of having a pre-agenda meeting.
But it might save time in the long run if, we have, when we've talked about this with other staff members, we have the one-on-ones and you're kind of going over the same thing. And if it's a public meeting, it's sunshine, in the sunshine meeting, we can kind of eliminate some of the one-on-one conversations and actually hear what the other one, to get a little more direction. But I like the idea. I think if we could figure out a schedule, I guess, we're gonna have to, Sylvina will not jump off the roof.
I love the idea. Wednesday mornings at 9. Sounds good. Great. We'll start tomorrow.
I'll be there. Except at court.
10, that's my rule.
I can
Yeah,
pursue
10
it.
o'clock. I'm
10 a.m.
Staff will welcome it. The more that we can get officially done and
Yeah, absolutely. I think
Getting out of the way.
it's the time.
makes us more efficient, so.
Yeah.
Uh,
I'm all for it.
again, but we serve at the pleasure of the body and we have to, we'll have to look at the rules, meeting rules, process of the agenda, and timelines, and then obviously over the top of that is what's the availability that you guys are gonna provide me to try to schedule with Selena and Melissa to try to lay in dates so that we commit to something and we're not changing it, mid-course.
As we sit here, is there a time with the 5 of us sitting here, is there a time that we all could agree that would work for all of us? 10 o'clock on
10
some
o'clock
morning.
Doesn't work for me. I could do 9, but Commissioner Malega can't do 9, but I can't.
I'm here 12 hours already on Tuesdays and Thursdays.
No, not about
10
work.
hours.
Well, we're all here a lot. I mean,
Yeah, that's 12 hours.
Come in at 9 a.m.
That's,
Well, it isn't gonna be on a Tuesday or Thursday, right?
my question was, on the 17th, why are we not talking about the review of the consultant?
So is the agenda packed on the 17th already? We still have opportunity to add items from the other 3 days, do we not?
We do not, Commissioner, I'm sorry.
We're not.
The agenda for the 17th is going out on Thursday.
Yeah, and at the
Okay.
pleasure of the commission, if you want to add on a discussion item to talk about the executive search for city manager, that's at your pleasure. We can add on.
So we have 11 days before the 17th, which would be the 16th.
Well, the
Or
expectation was
Thursday's
to
the
have,
third.
have this process completed by the end of August.
Yeah. So we're going on 2 different directions now. We're talking about pre-agenda meetings. And we're talking about adding something on the 17th. So do we want to stick to one topic for a minute?
I can come up with a couple more.
I'm sure you. Thank you, Mr. Rapp. Is there a time that each one of us could, one morning a week, except for court, I'm pretty open. 10 o'clock is always better for me because all the stuff I have to do in the morning. Chris, what about you?
I'm here. At least I think I'm here.
Yeah, we hear you.
I'm muted. Yes, I can be available and will be flexible on the timing and whatnot.
Okay. Herman.
How long would we anticipate? Do we have any idea?
Well, if I would,
An hour,
put a
2
time
hours?
on it.
Should be an hour.
I would say let's like aim for an hour and see how that goes.
We don't ever do anything
seems-
in an hour, guys.
I'm like,
Let's
that's,
just be honest.
That's true.
10 minutes
Yeah.
conversation.
To set an agenda is gonna require a lot of information exchange, staff involvement. There's the dialogue between the body.
But it would eliminate a lot of the one-on-one stuff.
It can,
Right.
without a doubt. And again, this was something going back a long time that we were trying to figure out how to institute for efficiency.
That's-
But it takes time commitment, and
Yeah.
locking us into an hour, I think we're just shooting ourselves in the foot.
I would do 9 if we had to.
I can't, I have to have a chunk of my day uninterrupted every day. I can't do 10 o'clock. I can do 9. I come in at 4 all the time to help make things work.
9
Sorry that I
o'clock
have to be so rigid about this.
9 o'clock is a reasonable
How
hour.
long can you stay? You just said you have to have a chunk of time.
Yeah, I can stay an hour. I mean, if this is taking.
But he
more
just
than
said
an
it's gonna
hour-
take him more than an hour.
Well, then I question the efficiency of this. This
Can
taking
we,
an hour.
could you do 9 to 11?
We can try 9 to 10, and then we'll see how it
And
goes.
if I have to excuse myself early and the rest of you want to carry on, I'm not voting on anything. I can go back and watch it on YouTube.
Let's shoot for 9, 1 hour.
I think an hour is optimistic.
Yeah, I think 1 is probably quite realistic here.
He is. He's a realistic kind of guy.
Yeah.
Maybe I would like an opportunity to look more into what exactly this is, that it feels like we're just taking the agenda. And I don't know what a pre-agenda meeting really is, that we're just gonna go through and discuss every item in detail during the pre-agenda.
No, not necessarily. This is the time for you to bring forward items that are your concern, topics, an opportunity for you to discuss, instead of it happening in the one-on-one and saying, hey, Juan, I want you to put this item on. And I say, well, the process is you put it on now, and then try to get consensus to either engage legal, to expend
Okay,
legal
so we're not
funds.
going through this.
We're not going through that.
It's just a, hey, let's talk about.
It's a meeting for us to
Mr.
talk
Robinson
about
wants two
stuff.
things, I want 2
Right.
things.
Yeah,
I
I've
think we
heard
could
some, I mean,
time
it's,
people.
it's like, I think what it boils down to on some level, as far as I'm concerned, is it's an opportunity for us to have a conversation, not with an agenda, but
Okay,
this, I've been hearing this from citizens. What do you think about that? Is this something we should bring?
Are we
to
doing
the
this
floor?
weekly, bi-weekly? Like, what is our goal?
I gotta look at the timeline on how it fits into creating agenda packets, when it's uploaded. I was joking about tomorrow. It's
Yeah, I
probably
think you
something
were.
we would look at. in-
We'd have to announce it anyway. Yeah.
Or.
Because I mean, if we could say, okay, it's gonna be the second Wednesday and the fourth Wednesday of every month at 9 o'clock.
Mhm.
I am self-employed and I need that structure.
Fine. I mean, no.
I can't just keep, I mean, I'm already accommodating a Monday here because one person can't do it and a Wednesday here.
Sarah, we all,
I'm
We all do, yeah.
vocalizing right now, my frustration that I've had to change 3 dates now because other people couldn't do stuff that I said that we could do and it was on the agenda now. So, I mean, we're getting a little deep with how many days we keep manipulating all of our schedules. And I've never said no to not being
Mhm.
a player on the team.
Mhm.
But literally, I've had to reschedule 3 customers because of other people not being able to stay committed to dates that have already been set in stone. So if we can just do like 2 days.
With all due respect, we all have different challenges with schedules. I'm like you, Sarah. I've made the city top priority. So Sylvina asked me a date. I don't think I've said no to any of them.
Correct, that's what I'm saying. If we could just pick a set like Tuesday or.
But I recognize that different people have different lives and different weights on them as far as their schedules. So, I'm not too judgmental about how that works.
I'm just saying, once you get through this policy line, if you can, I don't want it to be a Wednesday and a Friday this
Moving
month, but then switch to a
It would
Wednesday.
have
and
to
Wednesday.
be, it would have to be.
Yeah.
I just need consistency locked in to state this time we're gonna be here.
Right, I think that's what we're thinking.
Madam Mayor, if it's okay, let me go back and reconvene with staff. I have a department meeting tomorrow morning. And let us do some digging and see how other cities that have an existing pre-agenda meeting and how they conduct it, how their flow of information works. And let me come back and report back. All right, and then at that point in time, if we'll present a framework. And if you're okay with the framework, then we'll start getting into the calendars and dates. And yes, we'll pick a date, we'll pick a time, because it's important for the public announcement and the consistency. We got to plan our work plan. So the more we know up front, the better for everybody.
Okay.
All right. So
I think it's good. We're thinking about it. Let's see. if
But
we
does
can-
it, and also, does it have to be done here? Can we do it on Zoom?
It could be
If all-
Zoom.
You know, if
It could be
it's open to
Zoom.
the public,
Obviously.
right? And Kim's got someplace she needs to be and she knows it, but she could be on a Zoom at the same time and be, at least have ears on.
Well, remember the governor's executive order that governs the requirement to meet in person quorum is kind of what governs it, why we can't all be in Zoom.
No, we said there's
Free.
2 people can be on Zoom.
Right.
As long as we have 3 in the body.
Oh, is that what it is?
Present quorum is what I was trying to get
Right.
to.
Oh, for the
This
present
is for
one.
every single, like,
That's
this isn't
regular
a
meeting.
meeting where we're voting on anything.
Right.
This is just a workshop
I'll
essentially.
look into that, but it's generally a public meeting, so I'll look and see if there's no votes. The workshop is different.
Mhm.
It is, but I'll double check.
Mhm.
But
Yeah, now with different cities, I mean, you know, with a lot of different cities. Most of them don't have the agenda review anymore. Belgrade does, but they actually have it the same day as their meeting. They have agenda review from 6 to 6:30 and 6:30 their meeting starts.
That's interesting.
Right, that's a different one. South Palm Beach, they have a commissioner under your comments. If you want to bring something up, you'll say, I want to bring this up next meeting. Consensus is reached or not reached. If it's not reached, you can't bring it up. If it is, so there are different ways to skin the
Doesn't the
cat.
county do it in the morning too? Like they do the agenda review in the morning of the.
Other commission meetings are in the morning as well.
Yeah.
Everybody has a, you gotta find what works for you and your schedules. And frankly, you all have been working.
Yeah.
You know, since you've been elected.
I don't know.
Thank you.
But I hear you have more meetings and meetings.
Oh, my God, yeah.
Meetings
I mean, my long work I'm doing on the weekends now,
Exactly.
essentially.
So remember, this is not legal advice. We'll still have life.
So you're gonna charge
outside of
for it?
this.
That's what I mean, as much as I want to talk about the pool, I'm like, everybody, we're doing a CM, we're doing union
Right,
negotiations, we're doing
right.
budget, I'm like,
Right.
And
I think,
I know everything's a priority, but Rome wasn't built in a day. And you guys could take a breath, lead your lives a little bit,
Mhm.
and still do this without getting stressed and frustrated because we're
Yeah.
we've done a lot in a few months. We've really done a lot.
I've only, the one meeting I was, the 16th, that's the only meeting I've ever had said that I couldn't make because of my niece.
Okay.
Or we'll work on it.
Yeah.
Actually, let's look at tonight. You're the only city that approved the program for tenants. The only one,
Really?
that I know of in this county so far. So you've taken something, you run with it, you pulled it together, and you got that done.
full.
Got the
thanks
charter
to you
review, we
and
got the
Election
education
and
committee and-
Commissioner Stowe, I mean, but then we got executed for it, so I mean, I know.
Oh, my God.
I mean, thank you, but no thank you, right?
You're still live.
I know, but I'm just saying, I mean, for
Yeah.
people out there, yes,
But
we
you're able
did
to
it.
Put a lot of things together, but again, it doesn't mean you have to do it all. And I know Commissioner Roberts in the pool, and I'm not gonna say that full little word, but you know, you all have a
We're
rhythm.
kind of busy.
You all have to get in that rhythm, and city manager search.
Well, that too, right.
That's what I'm saying,
And plus the budget.
right?
Plus the budget,
Yeah.
and, right, you do.
I mean, I really don't, I'd like to do nothing but the budget and the city manager until we, get
But
those.
we can't, unfortunately.
Oh, I know.
And Juan won't speak for himself or staff, I mean.
They're
they run
stretched.
To the ground. too.
Yeah.
Oh, no, that's absolutely part of what we're thinking about.
Which is why the rescheduling of the agenda was important, because it doesn't make it doesn't make sense for people to sit here just because we're here till that late.
Right.
And if we can avoid the same staff member tells all 5 of us the same thing.
Exactly,
That's 5 hours of their time,
Yeah.
so we're
I mean,
trying
that's,
to.
that
but
they're
like
not
you
getting
said,
other
there's
work
different
done.
ways to
What's
get
the
it done.
public deserves.
Madam Mayor,
Yes,
shortly,
ma'am.
we're going to need a motion to extend.
Motion to.
Motion to adjourn.
Adjourn.
Motion to adjourn by Commissioner Lega, seconded by
Second.
Christopher,
Commissioner Stokes. All in favor?
Aye.
Good night.
aye. Well.